Thumbs up. Okay. You guys want to turn your mics on, please? Okay. Meeting will come to order. Welcome to this vast group here to the Cache County Council meeting to Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. And we will begin tonight with an opening from Councilwoman and Vice Chair Barbara Tidwell.
Hello everyone, welcome. I'd like to offer my comments in a form of a prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be gathered here this evening. We're grateful, Heavenly Father, for this free country and this great land. We're grateful for this county that we live in and for the many blessings that are given us. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for all those who represent the county and pray that we all would remember who we represent and be able to be humble and be able to recognize that there are so many great people in this county. We're grateful, Heavenly Father, for what we have. We ask that Thou would bless us with rain, that we could have our waters replenished so that we could get through the rest of this season and would have a good snowfall year, that we would be blessed for next year. We're grateful to be here on this council and pray for Thy guidance to be with us, that we would have the wisdom and the knowledge to make wise decisions. Help us to ask the questions we need to ask and do it in a pleasing manner. And this is our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Barbara. So have you had a chance to look over the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Have you had a chance to look over the minutes from July 13th, and are there any changes to those minutes?
I saw nothing, and so I'll move to approve the minutes of July 13th.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of July 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Abstained
carries.
on that one because I was not
Oh,
here.
okay, and Paul abstained. Thank you, Paul. I didn't catch that. So motion carries. I forgot to mention that Gordon Zillis is not here today. He's out of town, and so he's excused. And we will go now to item number 5, the report of our county executive, David Zook.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have a couple of items to report to you today. First of all, I just wanted to mention that Chandler Butler, the new Northern Utah Director for Senator Mitt Romney, is with us tonight. So I think he got a chance to meet some of you before the meeting. If not, please introduce yourself to him afterward. He'd love to meet all of you. So thank you, Chandler, for being here to come to our meeting. I had a meeting yesterday with UDOT, Rob White, who's our region director, and also our Transportation Commission Representative Rhonda Menlove and our Senator Chris Wilson, and we talked about a number of transportation priorities in our region, and we've got some good representation in all of those individuals who are there looking out for us. We talked about a number of projects, including getting cell towers through Logan Canyon, and another one that is kind of a new one that we're working on that you may not have heard about is improving 10th West on the north end. You may know that it kind of narrows down, necks down to just 2 lanes up there on the north end. So, and then that intersection with Airport Road 2500 North is not the greatest intersection. So that was kind of a new project that we brought to their attention, made sure they were aware of the needs there. We also had a CMPO meeting yesterday, Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization, and it was a good meeting. We actually approved some pretty big chunks of money for some great road projects here in the county. One of them was almost $5 million for Wolfpack Way, which will go from Green Canyon High School up to Hyde Park Lane. And the other project is 100 West, just right here in Logan, almost $4 million for that to extend it down over the river and complete that bridge there. So both of those would be great traffic improvements. Those funds, by the way, that was able to be paid for with federal dollars that we traded to the state. Got state monies in return. In addition to that, we were able to, as part of that trade, get $100,000 to improve our Cache Bikeway, which goes across the county. And Carly, our trails planner, is working on doing some striping and improvements on our bikeway. So that $100,000 will help her a lot with that project. Another project that she had before the CMPO last night, there were a number of other projects that were reviewed that did not receive final approval yet, but we'll likely do that at our next meeting. Included one that she also applied for $1 million to extend or close a missing link in a trail that goes from the Logan River Trail through Millville to Nibley. And that one has been proposed by the Technical Advisory Committee to be funded. So that'll be a great project, and I just wanted to mention what a great job Carly's doing on those projects and going out and securing funds. There were a number of other projects the CMPO and their Technical Advisory Committee recommended for improvement in the meeting last night. They weren't approved yet, but they include a roundabout on 2500 North and 800 East in North Logan, and that would be close to $1 million project. It includes a roundabout at 250 East, right just in front of Skyview High School, and that would be over $1 million project, about $1.7 million. And then there was also about $700,000 in funds for some bikes and trails projects in Providence City. And then 1200 East, near the university, just east of the university, there are a couple of intersection improvements that are being looked at there. Pretty significant improvements, about $6 million projects for the intersection improvements on 1200 East of the cemetery and the university. So those are just a couple of the projects that are being proposed to be funded, and some of them that were funded last night at the CMPO meeting. I had, on a different topic, I had a meeting today actually with one of our former county attorneys and got briefed about some history on Davenport Road as well as Coldwater Canyon Road. I don't know how many of you are aware of that issue, but it sounds like it's in a lot of ways similar to the Davenport Road issue. And speaking of Davenport Road, I also did about a week and a half ago, it was hosted by Kevin Brown, who took me out to the Davenport Road site and showed me some of the issues out there. So I know at the beginning of the year when each of you shared your goals for the year, I know that was on the list of several of your lists of goals for the year. So that's something I've been working with John Luthi in the attorney's office on, and I'm hopeful that we can make some progress on both of those issues. Just as a heads up, there's a Veterans Center that's having a grand opening tomorrow at 2:30. Janine sent out an invitation, so you have the information on the calendars if you'd like to attend that. It's not a county facility, but it's something that we're supportive of, and if you're able to come, that'd be great. Our chairwoman, Gina Worthen, and I met today with the Red Cross, and they are at what they refer to as a severe shortage when it comes to blood. They have nationally about a half day's supply, one half of 1 day's supply of blood on hand. So they are making pleas for blood donations. They're planning an event here to do a major donation event at the beginning of the USU school year. But if you're so inclined, they are in great need of blood donations. I just wanted to thank everybody who helped with the Summer Salsa Showdown. that we had earlier today, and I wanted to recognize the winner, who was Janine Allen, came in first place. It was a blind taste test. We had a budget committee meeting yesterday, and things are looking good for our budget. Coming into this year, we're in really good shape. We are running what will probably end up being close to $1 million surplus for this year's budget. Our tax revenue numbers are up. Sales tax is up. It seems like we are experiencing a pretty good recovery from the slowdown that we had last year because of the pandemic. So we talked about that in the budget committee meeting, and then we also talked about our ARPA funds. We have about $25 million in ARPA funds that'll be coming our way from the federal government. And we started a discussion about a framework for determining how we might propose to you some expenditures and ways to spend that. So the budget committee will be working on that over the next couple of meetings, and then come to the council and give you some suggestions on ideas of ways that we can use that. We're still waiting for the final rules from the federal government on how we can use those funds. We have initial rules and the legislation, but it sounds like it won't be until the fall till we get final rules on that. But we have several years to use these funds, so we're not too worried about that at this point. I also wanted to thank everybody who helped and attended the summer party. I know elected officials helped with things there, and staff helped with getting things set up and ready, and it was a great opportunity to thank our good employees for all the hard work that they do. We also had, speaking of trails, we had a grand opening about a week and a half ago for the Murray Trailhead out in Wellsville, and it was a great example of partnerships between public and private individuals and a number of agencies who supported it. And I just want to thank everybody who was a part of that project and made that amenity accessible and available to the public. If you haven't been out there to the trail, it's a beautiful, beautiful trail and a beautiful place in Wellsville. Last thing I have for you tonight, I did attend the National Association of Counties conference, and it was a great conference. We had a number of workshops and subcommittee meetings on a variety of topics. While I was there, it was held in Washington, D.C., and while I was there, I took the opportunity to go and meet with our legislators, our federal legislators. I met with Senator Romney and Senator Lee, and Representative Moore was not in town, but I met with his chief of staff. And we had great meetings with all of them, talked about a number of issues. Some of the meetings were brief, and some of them were a little longer, but we took the opportunity to let them know about some of our concerns here at the county level. And I felt like our federal representatives were very open to our concerns, and they're already helping us with our concerns. Chandler even followed up with one of them with me this evening. So it was a great visit, great opportunity to meet with them. The last item I have, in addition to that report, just to let you know, the June 2021 financial statements have been provided to you, and that concludes my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Executive Zook. Appreciate that detailed report. Next item of business is 6A, floodplain mapping update from Matt Phillips. Thanks, Matt, for being here to give us this update.
This one.
Always look at that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't sure how to approach the update. The floodplain can be a very interesting topic. There's a lot going on with it, so I thought I would just kind of do a little bit of background, see if there's any questions, and try to pique your interest in coming to a meeting we're having.
It's last week, right?
But not in our county.
I looked for pictures. You know, if you Google on the internet, you'll see pictures of houses floating away. Couldn't find any of those for Cache County. But the one on the left up there is in Cache County. In 2005, that was the Blacksmith Fork River. It's a little family. Most of the flooding we have in the county that, in the unincorporated part, looks like more of the right side where someone gets left with a whole bunch of mud and debris from spring runoff. But anyways, so what I wanted to do is just talk about the National Flood Insurance Program for a minute. It's managed by FEMA. It was created through Congress in 1968 by the passage of the National Flood Assurance Act. Back then there was a lot of flooding going on around the Mississippi River, and no one would pay for, there wasn't any private parties that would offer flood insurance. So the government stepped up and said, hey, we're going to create a program so that these families can get some kind of help when water goes through their house. The other part, just quickly, is it's a quid pro quo program. So FEMA says, yeah, we'll provide flood insurance, but you guys have to, your communities, we're only going to provide it to communities that will enforce the regulations and be a part of it. So if your community doesn't participate and we don't have the minimum floodplain management in our regulations, in the land use stuff, we have, Chris has floodplain stuff in the code. If you don't have that, then anyone in your community is not available for that flood insurance. So there's also been some other things, 1973, 1994, where if you're trying to get a federally backed mortgage, and you're in a special flood hazard area, you have to have flood insurance. So our community participates so that that's available for those people. Most of those are usually lower income families and stuff like that a lot of times. So it's a good program, but just a little bit of background on the flood insurance program. NFIP is kind of based on a three-legged stool. So they want you to know the risk, manage the risk, and insure the risk. The insurance part of that is the insurer. The county's in charge of managing that risk through our ordinances and our code. And the other part of that is know the risk. So the way we know that risk is by mapping. And so hence that comes to my mapping. So the very first maps the county got were 1980. On that, if you squint really hard, you can see that that was effective in 1981. And they didn't call them firms like we're used to calling them now. They call them a flood hazard boundary map, which means a whole bunch of people got together and just started kind of tracing a line on contours saying, Dave, has they had water by your house? Yep, it comes up to about here. And so they made some maps, and that's how the insurance company assessed the risk. So if you were in zone A, you had, your risk. If you're outside of that zone, they said, oh, you're not a risk. So it was just really to identify those risks that were associated with flooding.
And it didn't even correlate with soil types and,
Nope.
Historical, anything.
Nope.
So 25 years ago, when we built our house near the mouth of a dry canyon, they designated that as a flood hazard zone. We had to do flood insurance.
So some of these updates that FEMA is doing for us may change that area for you. I know Logan's working very hard on trying to update a lot of their floodplains independently, kind of prodding FEMA along. But Logan's doing a good job. Most of the other communities are kind of in the same situation as the county, where this was in 1980. The next one that we have was in 2011. Now they actually call them a firm, which means there's supposed to be a little bit more research behind it. I would say most of what I've seen in the county didn't change. There is some areas that did change, but a lot of our stuff didn't change. So I guess the point of it is from 1980 till now, there's portions in the county that really haven't changed of what's considered a flood risk in that A zone. So The project that's been working, that we're having a meeting for coming up, it started back in 2015. I wasn't here at the county, but I think there was meetings to discuss, hey, what areas of the county and city, so this was a regional project, so North Logan, Logan, Hyde Park, Richmond, all the cities were invited to kind of see where they needed to spend the money to study. So in 2015, they kind of got their scoping down. You can see in 2019, there was a meeting. So now we're here at the preliminary issuance, June 2021. So, and I think that's changed, now it's July. So that, at the end of this month, they will actually send these maps out that they've been working on for preliminary approval. And then there's a 90-day period where we get a comment on it. So, but they will still won't become effective until maybe the early winter of 2023 or late fall of 2022. So the point of this slide is that it's a 7-year process. These maps don't get changed overnight. It's not an easy process. I'm sure you guys might have got emails that have some of this in it, but I did want, just so that you guys are aware of it, and you can't see this on the screen, but this is the study area that was determined during all those meetings. If you look on there, most of those places that were studied happen to fall within community boundaries. So you look in Clarkston, there's some stuff that was studied in the municipal city limits of Clarkston, same with Richmond, Smithfield, some in Hyde Park. But most of the county area didn't get a detailed study, so some of the places in the county are still going to be back to that 1980s floodplain. It's unfortunate, but that's the situation we're in. One of the areas we did get a lot of studies and places to look at is between Mendon and Wellsville. So, but if someone's asking, someone comes to you, hey, I'm hearing something about FEMA floodplain maps being updated. This is a reference. You can say, where are you? Well, doesn't look like your area is going to change a whole bunch. Or, hey, look, you guys are getting a brand new study. But a lot of times those studies stopped at the Smithfield boundaries or somewhere like that. So in the county portion, it's still not really identified. But this is one area I wanted to just bring attention to. This is between Wellsville and Mendon. Chris, you might have to help me with the subdivision name of that. There's Cobblestone is at the top, and then there's another subdivision we talk a lot in the county there along that bottom road. But the purple part is what's currently effective floodplain maps. The blue is what it's got shrunk to after the detailed study. So all that purple is being removed from the flood hazard zone, which is all the purple's being removed, which is a good thing, right? There's houses in that now they're not going to have flood insurance. But if you look on that line that goes right there, that's UDOT's road. So for a long time, they just said, well, the flood goes to the road, and then the road stops it, and they kind of figured out now that's not the case. But if you look on the other side of UDOT's road, you'll see some purple that's been replaced by the blue. But if you look kind of at the top of that image, you'll see just blue. There's no purple there. So this study's determined that, hey, they found new floodplain zones. So now that they've really tracked where the water comes, how it gets down to Cutler, there's those two areas right there that weren't on the 1980s, they weren't on the 2011. Those are new areas that are going to be mapped as a special flood hazard. So for us, from a county point, all those people that live in that or had land in that's maybe been planning on doing development or building a house on one of their properties, now with this new map update, they're gonna be smack dab right in the middle of a floodplain. So while the majority of the county is getting out of the floodplain, there is a few places where there's a new mapped floodplain. So on Monday, August 9th, the first meeting will be people from FEMA and the state, the SDEM will come. They want to talk to the staff of the county. They want to talk to community officials, and they're going to go over the mapping. They're going to answer any questions and just kind of lay out the process for us. That's in this room on Monday, August 9th they've said 2 to 4. You guys should all get an invitation. I know they've asked for all your emails, so,
They sent us a calendar invite.
okay.
Now it was showing as the multi-purpose room next
It
door,
it will
but
be.
it's gonna be in this
It
one.
will be in this room, yes. Shortly after that meeting, it's, the community officials, there'll be a public open house. So I would get out the word to any of those people. There's maps. I know that they've sent maps to me. I have hard copies. Chris has a hard copy of the maps. Our GIS department has loaded those on the website so that they're searchable. But we want to try to get as much public participation in the open house as possible. This is where they can voice their concerns. There's a 90-day window where if there's any concerns or they're relevant, then this is the time to do it. After that, they become effective, and it's very hard to change them. So, any questions?
Can we post notice, like on the streets in those impacted areas out there in Wellsville, Mendon?
Yeah, we can. I was going to try to work with the GIS department and get a list of those areas and tax parcel IDs, similar to how Development Service sends out the 300-foot notice, and just try to get as much people as we can. I know in talking to the people that put the meetings on, they're usually low attended, but
So are they basing this off of a 100-year storm or historic?
so I didn't want to get too technical, but you brought it up. The 100-year storm is a term that's going away. That's kind of an engineer's shorthand notation for the 1% annual chance that a storm will exceed a certain flow. But it's hard to write that on an engineering spreadsheet, to write 1% annual chance. So the shorthand is a 100, but in FEMA's discussions, you're not going to hear them say that. But all these are based on the 100-year storm.
And I notice they're identifying canals because canals have been said a place for water to hit and run.
Yep,
But where it is, canals are going to be piped.
correct.
So that changes a lot of things as to how
Yes.
that distributes floodwater.
If they're in a mapped floodplain, they'll have to go through that process to get those changed and updated and get that information back to FEMA. Whether it's a LOMA or a, letter of map revision, a LOMAR. So, any other questions?
Thank you, Matt.
you're
Appreciate
welcome.
that presentation and your knowledge on this issue. Thank you. Okay, so we listed 5:30 for public hearings, and we just actually need to set some public hearings. There's 3 of them. And council, let me draw your attention to, let's see, which one was it? Number C, 9C. We had already set this public hearing, and then there was some confusion over the giving the proper notice. It didn't get noticed properly, so we need to reset it. So if it looks familiar to you, that's why, because we had set it once and we need to reset it again. So I'd entertain a motion to set these 3 public hearings.
So moved, we set the public hearings for ordinance 2021-19, 2021-16, and 2021-18
I'll second that.
for the as stated times
Okay.
and dates.
It's been moved and seconded to set public hearings for ordinance 2021-19 and 2021-16 for August 10th, and then for ordinance 2021-18 for August 24th. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so then we will move back to item 7A, Terrell Warner to give us a report on the Children's Justice Center.
I was going to give a shout out first to the greatest detective there, or deputy there is, Okar, but Phil's outside. Okar's here, so, and I love Okar. He's adorable and he lets me pet him and he doesn't bite me, so that's a good thing.
You don't need to put that in the minutes.
Yeah, and he's outside enjoying the nice fresh air. Okay, first I wanted to do a couple things. One, congratulations, Janine, on winning the salsa competition, and we look forward to more salsa. And David, I'm just hoping you will agree that Costa Rica was the bomb. Okay, good. Got a shake out of that. And it's wonderful and beautiful. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. We have opened this new CJC. We are doing interviews. We've had them almost every day. We've got the medical bed moved over, so we will start doing medical exams there this week as well. We would like to invite any of you to come over, and I will not be there tomorrow, but I will be there Thursday and Friday if you'd like to walk through, and we would be happy to take you on a tour and let you see what we're doing there. I learned we had flood irrigation. I had no idea what flood irrigation was, so because I'm from Southern California, and I just saw this thing of water come running down the road, and I went running out the door thinking that somebody had something broken because it was just this huge amount of water. And I learned about flood irrigation. So I need to give a shout out to Candace McCreary and Nate Argyle because they do our flood irrigation for us every Thursday afternoon. So we have green grass. Candace has actually got hose going into the garden area, so it's looking pretty good. I did not know what flood irrigation was. So I still just want you to know I can't reach my hands down to turn the thing. My arms are too short, so I have to have somebody else come and do that. We did get VOCA funding approved for the next couple of years for the CJC. Our Attorney General contract, which is the other significant source of our funding. That contract is being sent, I believe, this week to Mr. Zook, and we will be working there with that. We are continuing to make some changes in the way that we handle the Children's Justice Center. We've partnered with both the Family Place and CAPSA. So the Family Place comes over. We introduce the family to a representative of the Family Place right then and there. I think I had shared with you, we just didn't feel like it's working if we give them a name and a number. We've just had some problems where people just don't follow up, and I get that. If they're in trauma and they're struggling, they're probably not going to make one more phone call. We have found that to be really successful. I think I had talked to you guys in February about that, and we had followed up with 20 families, and 16 had said we would not have followed up had the Family Place been there. We are continuing to work with CAPSA as well. So I'll share with you that a child protective order, if that's needed for whatever reason, we have a relationship with CAPSA where we have a designated person that will come to the CJC to do that child protective order. They don't need to go somewhere else. CAPSA will come to them and do the protective order there at the CJC, or they'll arrange a different time for the family to meet with CAPSA so that we can have those. There is one change I'm making to the CJC, and I hope you can all come and see it. We have some areas I'm just going to show you I'm straight out of the ghetto. I didn't know what millwork was. And I was like, oh, are these picture frames? And they said, no, that's accent millwork. And I just thought, oh, they would make really good picture frames. So I just want you to know we're adding 2 pictures, one on each side of the entryway. And I will tell you that our sweet Desiree Turner has a robotic arm, and she is learning to do this bead art with her robotic arm. And she did a picture from my office, and she's doing 2 more. She sent me pictures of one that she's finished and then one that she's working on. So she's taking her robotic arm and taking these small little beads and making pictures out of the beads. And it takes her a while because and it's really good for her to learn to use her arm that way. So she's got 2 more pictures and I'm putting them up in the entryway because I think if this girl can do a picture like this, we are going to showcase every single kid that this young woman has accomplished a great deal and has overcome some great tragedies in her life, and that anybody with the proper help and the assistance and the resources can overcome things as well. So I just kind of wanted to touch base with you. I'll be back again when? Soon. Oh, maybe it's next month. It may be in September. I don't remember. But we'll be talking about the other grants as well. So does anybody have any questions?
Thank you,
If you
Terry.
haven't come by, I'll show you the picture that Des made of a horse, and I just love it. And she's got some little animals that she's working on right now, and we'll show you those because they're really cute.
It's gorgeous. I thought it was awesome.
Oh, her picture of the horse, isn't it?
It's
I don't even know how you do that. I don't think I have short, stubby little smokies, so I think I would really struggle to do that. But she's just done an amazing job. So I will be with her as her mission companion on Monday, and we will be doing a few things at the CJC. I'll put her to work. So
Thank you, Terrell. Appreciate all your hard
thank you
work.
so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, we now have a report from our County Clerk Auditor, Jess Bradfield. While he's coming up, I'll just mention that we wanted to have the council get more reports from our different departments, and so a sign-up sheet was sent around to have the different departments sign up for time to come talk to the council, so that's why Jess is here. He signed up for today.
Recall 4. Wait a second.
Can I cast it to
Go into full mode. You're on.
that? Okay. Before we get to that, I've got a couple other things. Just a couple of updates. Regarding the Salsa Showdown, I heard that you used Venezuelan software and that the judges wouldn't allow people within 25 feet of the ballots they hid under the tables. And I just wanted to, is that correct?
That's all hearsay. You better do an audit.
So I wanted to start out by thanking my staff, Bryson Bem for taking amazing minutes, his overall assistance over the past months, Diana Schaefer for the great work that she does in audit and tax administration, and I want to thank all the new staff and current staff, I should say, really, for the amazing work that they're doing. My current full-time and part-time employees are great to the public. They're good researchers. Anytime I have a question, they'll help me research it, and they're quick to offer good suggestions for efficiencies. And then another thing that the council will be pleased about, I believe, is that I spoke to our codifier personally, and they agreed to expedite our code updates, and we're now current with all new ordinances, and the office has been behind for some time, and they have agreed to a 15-day maximum turnaround to get our code updated. So, all right, now I'll go into my presentation here. So, just a quick report out. So, as you know, on the election side, we've signed contracts with every single municipality in the county to help assist with their elections. We just received the last signed agreement today, and so the primaries, of course, this year, we have Logan, North Logan, Smithfield, and Trenton that we're currently working on to assist with their primaries. We just completed the logic and accuracy test on 7/16. Gina, thank you for showing up to that.
Welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
We have decided to invite every candidate and council member. And of course, we always invite the public. Not many people show up, but we're going to start really telling people when it is. And what a logic and accuracy test is it shows you have a predetermined amount of ballots, and it has kind of an algorithm. And if you hand count, typically you're going to be wrong. But if you run them through our machine, which we use ES&S software, what you do is you run it through our machines, and you check against what you know the numbers are versus what come out of the machine, and it tells you. And that way you can verify the numbers that we should get are the numbers that we are getting. So it's called the logic and accuracy test. And we're happy to say that our machines are 100% correct. We have the primary on August 10th, we have the general on November 2nd, and we are adding 7 new ballot drop boxes in 2021. We've come up with the slogan, over time, a ballot drop box will save the county money because we now have to pay for postage. We didn't always have to do that, but now if somebody puts their ballot in the mailbox, the county has to, or the municipality has to absorb those costs. That's 55 cents roughly per return envelope. And so over the course of a decade, you can save quite a bit of money by having people put their ballots in a drop box rather than send them through the mail. So we will have, I think, roughly 14, 15. Our goal is to get every city to have a drop box. Some are small, and that's okay. They're all locked, secure, but some are rather large. All right. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about, we've been doing historic book preservation this year. And why is it important? It's because it's a public record. The public deserves to know and have their records preserved indefinitely. And so our books have become damaged, many of them, over time. You can see the picture on the left shows that, you know, we're keeping some of them together with masking tape. And so we need to do a better job protecting them in perpetuity. We've taken them outside of, they were previously stored just in our general room, in our clerk's area. What we've done is we've taken them, built a bookshelf on the far right there, you can see that picture, and each one has its own specific bin where it is stored now. We're also going to be purchasing acid neutral boxes to put them in, and then we're going to have to go through, and we've been learning from the experts, you have to go through and you spray the pages with anti-neutralization spray, then you put them in the boxes, and then they can store in perpetuity, and that helps them to preserve for a greater amount of time. It's intensive as far as, not cost especially, it can be expensive, but it is time consuming, but it's something, as the records manager of the county, it's important, I believe. These are our founding documents. So, oh, I had more on here. All right, here's more. So as far as records preservation is concerned, the previous clerk was doing some, and I want to give credit where credit is due. In the 1960s, I believe, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints microfilmed a lot of our marriage licenses that were kept in those historic books. And then the previous clerk in the early 2000s had those microfilms put to CDs. And so I think that's very important that I recognize that. The pictures were imaged at 4 licenses per page, and there's roughly 12 to 15,000, well, it'd be 18,000 records. And so we have already done 6,000 of those. We have had to go through and separate those 4 into 1 at a time. And so we've done 6,000 of those bound records. We still have a lot to go. We've done 6,000 other marriage licenses this year with about 12,000 still remaining. Once we get to that number, that completion date, we can actually take all those, because we'll have them, and a certified copy can be printed out from a digital record, and we can move those to the state archives, and the state archives will preserve them, and they will help us to preserve them in perpetuity. So we don't have to move them, but it's one of the things that we're looking at, and the state archive is working with us to make sure we do it correctly, that things are done, done correctly. Other historic books, We had a lot of other books that were not microfilmed. I think we had 3 books out of like 25 or 20 something that were not micro. 3 out of the 20 additional books that are like articles of incorporation that were microfilmed and digitized. So now we have to go through those other ones, and as you can see, what we've done is we are taking pictures page by page. That's the best way that you can do it. It gives you the highest quality of picture, and you just go page by page. It's very time consuming, it's intensive, but again, what is going to be the best process for our posterity? And I think that's my duty, to make sure that these records are preserved. All right. And then, I should say, we're going to put those records online. That's our end goal. We don't want to just say, oh, we have this cool bookshelf. Come and look at this bookshelf. Although I love the bookshelf. But I think most people are going to want to look at these records online. So that we will be, I don't think we're going to get to all of those by the end of the year. But for the marriage licenses, we should be done by the end of the year. So how many documents besides what I've told you about have we reviewed? Those are some of the documents on the left and some of the documents on the right, and we've probably reviewed double the amount of those documents. We've had to go through them for ordinances. We've had to go ordinance by ordinance, make sure it was uploaded online, and if it wasn't, we made sure that we took a copy of it. Same thing with the minutes, same thing with everything we're doing. It's just very methodical. We have to go page by page to make sure it's there. So we wanted to make sure you knew we were accomplishing something in there. So Clerk e-portal. There's been some questions about the success of the Clerk e-portal. In the beginning of 2021, we had 0 digital forms, and now we have almost all of our forms by July of 2021 digitized. And so it preserves the record indefinitely. We don't have to have paper copies of anything. We've taken about 15 to 20 different paper types, and now we only have 3. Basically, a marriage license, a certified copy, and a regular piece of paper that we can use for anything. And we used to have 15 different color-coded things. And so we're pretty proud that we've been able to accomplish that in 7 months. But all those different things, and as you can see, marriage licenses will always be the top record request, but you tasked us with grandma, and I want you to know we've taken it serious. And as the records officer, we've received over 40 grandma requests this year alone. And that's only since instituting this. And so we have been getting at least 3 a week lately, 3 to 5. It takes up quite a bit of time. You can imagine who some of them are from, but we still have to respond to them. And so we do our best to make sure that we meet those requests in the timely manner. So, and we want to help make sure that your lives are easier. That's one of the reasons we do this. We don't want to have you guys having to worry about responding to any of these grandma requests unless it directly involves you. So if you get them, just send them over to us, disregard them. We'll get back with you if you need to. All right, as far as the auditor is concerned, of course, you know we're in tax season, but we've done 2 internal performance audits. Now, when it comes to internal performance audits, I think there's something that needs to be said. That is, there's code compliance, and then there's what we believe are best practices, or practices we believe are better maybe than what we have. Those can be taken at face value. The ones that we believe that are, just good practices or maybe better. The code practices, I have 2 lawyers who were contracted to actually do this, so they were legal opinions. And what we have is they've gone through the code, they've gone through the state code, and then they've reached out to the state experts. So if you read the findings, which are located on our website, so if you go to the Auditor, and then you go through audits and then internal audits, and then you'll find them. You can actually review all of our write-ups. And so there are areas within the executive's office that we believe need some updating, such as code delegation. We believe that it would be beneficial to the executive's office to split the surveyor from the executive. It doesn't really make sense in any, we couldn't really make sense of it at all, and why that would be like that, especially if there's other offices that have those capabilities. But the recorder's office I wanted to touch upon. There were significant compliance issues with that. Now, this is not my job as an auditor. I want everyone to understand. We're not trying to beat anyone up. We want everyone to feel comfortable when we come into their office, and we want to say, hey, we believe there's issues here, but they can be fixed, right? We're not trying to put people in jail. That's not the job of what I'm doing. We're not looking for, well, we are looking for fraud, waste, and abuse, but that's not specifically in a performance audit exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for code compliance issues, things like that. And so there are, we do find that the recorder's office has a duty to maintain current owners' names on an ownership plat, and that's not necessarily current. And then we also find that the recorder's office is not in compliance with state code in reporting parcel changes to the county assessor. And we gave recommendations to hire and train additional staff. I want to touch on this only because we did a significant amount of work. And I think the recorder's office brings in roughly $1.5 million in fees annually. His budget is $500,000, if I recall the exact number. It's slightly less than $500,000, or slightly more. So they're using less than a third of their budget. Now, we are in an economic boom, but even if we say that the market fails and goes down by 50%, they're still not using 50% of their current budget. And I believe that they do have significant need, so they wouldn't even be at capacity if 50% of the volume was gone, if that makes sense. So cut it by 50%, they'd still be only at about 80% of their total budget as far as what they're using. So they do have some significant need, and our recommendations were simple: hire and train additional staff, use collected fees to hire more staff, because it really, we don't, as my office's contention is, you probably shouldn't bring in $1 million worth of revenue that isn't being used in your office. It doesn't look good to the public. And then use any excess recording fees to update backlogged ownership plats. And anyway, I've spoken to the rest of that. And so that's what we found on that. But I do want to say, overall, a well-run office. Both of those offices are well-run. And I'm happy to answer questions, obviously, now or in the future. You can always feel comfortable coming to me, asking about them. And I can also have the lawyers who wrote the actual report meet with you individually. And I think that's important too. So.
Hey, Jess, when you did those audits, did you look at anything, some of these requirements under state law? Honesty and integrity of a financial and other affairs, accuracy and reliability of financial and management reports, adequacy of financial control, some of those things, I don't see those in your report, and I'm curious if you took a look at those. Or what was it that you were specifically looking for in the audit? Because I don't think that was clear to council.
Yeah, so if you read the report, in the report, it spells out exactly what the report was for. It's really a general overview of, let's take all your code that's designated to your office. So we have an entire spreadsheet. That's not included in the report, but we have it, and we've got that on file. And so what we did is we took a spreadsheet and we wrote down every single code essential to that office. Because this isn't necessarily limited to financial audits, it's a performance audit, which is slightly different.
Actually listed under state law under performance audit, just for the record.
Yeah. There's also, it's really a very open-ended thing in the state performance audit. But as far as the performance audit goes, code is our significant one of what we looked for in this. So we took all the code, listed it out line by line, and then our auditor, who's a lawyer, went through and actually said, are they meeting this? They went into the office, they met with staff, and then they reviewed policies and practices. Are you doing this? Are you doing this? So there's hundreds of line items where they went through and just checked, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Now, the executive's office is a lot smaller. There's a lot more limited code when it comes to that. But the recorder's office is quite intensive. And so if you are interested in the spreadsheet, we do have it. But it's not something where we thought, we wanted people to focus on, look, these are the things that, when you have hundreds of line items, and really there's only 2 or 3 that are out of compliance, we wanted people to focus on those and not be lost in the hundreds of line items. So, yes.
Executive office, number 2 on the findings, potential for fraud and waste.
Yes.
Can I have an example of that?
Yes. So the surveyor could, because they're contracted, there could be potential for kickbacks where you say, give me the result that we want or we cut your contract. So there's instances where that could occur. Has it occurred? We're not saying that it has occurred. I want everyone to know we've found that all the executives have been honest and upright. There's no instance of that occurring. But does it create an instance where a county official could say, I want you to give us the result that we're looking for? And so when you have an independent elected official, that's the reason that I'm independent and elected, and that the attorney's office is independent and elected, is we get to give our own opinions, and only the voters can determine if they don't like that. Whereas if you contract with someone, then they can actually say, okay, well, we want to keep this contract, so I guess we'll, and it doesn't have to be explicit. It can be implied. That's really not what we're looking for. We're looking for this. And so you have to be cautious about it.
Who gave you input and direction, may I ask, as to which affiliates, where to go to talk to the so-called professionals that you referenced in your report, in your findings? Who directed you to those specific people, and why weren't multiple people in those same areas consulted?
Yeah, well, they were. So,
it doesn't say anything about multiple people.
When it comes to county government, there's a limited number of experts that are at the top, and then really the experts are oftentimes the officials themselves. And so we contacted other counties and said, what is it that you're doing? And what do you interpret the laws to be or the code to be in these types of instances? And then we relied heavily on UAC. So we would say, so who teaches these courses? For instance, the recorders. We said, who's the expert who teaches recorders what they should be doing? And that's basically how we came to that.
So I think it would be helpful for the council and for others if you included that in your report of what your sources were, how you came to these conclusions, because it's not clear.
They should be in there. I think they are. I'll take the stance that they're in there. It doesn't necessarily say we relied heavily on UAC, but it does say we contacted this person because they're the lead educator on this issue. And
What does changing the name from county executive to county mayor have to do with an audit?
yeah, so that one was more of a true performance thing where we said, okay, that one could have been included or left out. We decided to include that one only because, in our opinion, it caused some confusion. And truly, we could tell Salt Lake County, hey, you guys should be using executive rather than, and that might actually benefit us rather than us going to mayor. But
I prefer to be different than Salt Lake County.
Salt Lake County went to the legislature and had them change the law so they could be mayor. The original has always been executive, as in chief executive officer, and that's why we call it a county executive. So I would have loved to see how you guys came to that conclusion, because that's completely different than anything that we've ever heard before. And a mayor doesn't truly reflect what the county executive does and would just actually confuse the public more, quite frankly.
I would actually contend that that's probably incorrect. A mayor is very well understood. An executive, if you say in the business sense, because most individuals that we discussed, we took kind of a soft poll. Now, it wasn't scientific, but what we did was we went around and said, hey, do you know what a county executive is? UAC, we found some of the leaders within UAC didn't even know what a county executive was. When I would go out with businesses, they didn't know what a county executive was. They said, who should I get in contact with? Logan City Mayor? I mean, who's the biggest person in the county? And maybe there's an argument that Logan City Mayor may be. But at the same time, we'd say, well, the county executive is actually who you should be contacting. And they'd say, what is an executive? Because what's happened over time is a business executive has just become someone who's a business higher up. And so sometimes a manager, like a county manager, and there's something I've talked to Carl Ward about this one, and I just want to expound, is that don't lose sleep over this one. I'm not going to, I don't want you to, and that's that if you don't like it, it's okay. The code is important. The opinion of something like we should switch to a mayor versus an executive, that's opinion-based, and it's us just saying we found that it can be confusing to individuals. Most people don't know what a county executive is or does, and so you should look at it.
Excuse me, but who sends you down the road to look for that in an audit?
Why is that part of an audit? Why is that part of a performance
Why is
audit?
it even part of an audit?
So
Let me go one step before you answer that.
Yeah.
I look at the audits, I printed them off, and I've got them here. I was looking at them, I went quite thorough with them, and a lot of the findings that you have, I've been hearing these findings clear, all spring and all kind of as we're going along. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like now they're the results of the audit. And I'm going, I don't want to call them canned audits, but it just seems like here's where I want you to be in the audit, this is where I want you to end up in the audit. And I'm worried that you had the goal, you had the answer as you went and put your audits toward the answer rather than find out what the answer really is on things.
Well, we did take...
I'm worried about that because I read these and to me they're kind of like canned audits. They're just, we're sending you down the road knowing we're going to get you to this road and this is where we want you to be.
Yeah. So as the auditor, I'm going to push back a little and say, we refute that any of these would be canned audits. So in any substance of the imagination or in any situation, we refute that these are canned audits. These are done by legal opinion experts who have, especially when it comes to the recorder's office, who do have a significant amount of time that they've done the research, and they were hired for that purpose. I'm not an expert when it comes to recorder's offices, and so we sought counsel that were. Now, in the process of this, again, if you're going through hundreds of lines and then you have a couple that stand out, you do dig for those. And you can also ask individuals, do you see any shortcomings in your office? Right? That's an office audit. Auditors will often say, hey, do you know of any areas within your office that you may not be in compliance? Could you point us towards those? That's very common in an audit because they're pointing you there. You don't have to dig, and they're showing that they're not trying to hide anything. So it's not that anything was canned or anything like that. If you want to see all the other items that we went through and actually said, are they in compliance with this, the answer would be, we have that on file.
Well, Jess, with an audit, you're asking the department, do you know of any shortcomings? Shouldn't you be knowing of those shortcomings before you actually go in that office so you know what to look for?
No. You don't really know what our mission is not to go in and say, before we go in, we haven't identified any fraud, waste, or abuse or code violations. So our purpose was to go in open-minded, 100% open-minded. And again, my mission, my directive to my staff was not take what they say as gospel, and it was not only don't listen to them. It was listen to what they have to say and verify. Use the code to examine what's real and what's not. And make sure that you're going line by line through those codes and seeing what is correct. Because not everything that people think is out of compliance necessarily is. And sometimes what you think is in compliance is not in compliance. And so there are a few little things, but they didn't rise to the level what we would call a finding. So
I do have another question. You said you asked people, and maybe I'm belaboring this, but you asked people if they knew what a county executive was. Did you ask them if they knew what a county mayor was?
yeah, everyone knows we would actually say, oh.
Know what a county mayor is?
I mean, you and I talked about this, and I have a real problem with it, because a mayor for the county is not at all the same type of function that a city mayor has.
Yeah.
A city mayor, he hires the auditor. He hires the recorder. He hires the attorney. He hires all of these specific departments that are independent and are elected officials. And it is not the same, and he does not have control over your office, over the attorney's office, over anybody else's office. And so when you say mayor, in the mind of a typical constituent, that's going to be, well, if I have a problem with the clerk's office, I'm going to go talk to the mayor because they can get something done for him. But that isn't the case.
It kind of happens, though.
But it's not the case, and that's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a significant misnomer if we start calling our executive a mayor, because the mayor does not, the executive does not have the same oversight of a municipality mayor who is mayor over an independent corporation. I mean, a city is a corporation. The county exists under the auspices and approval of the state.
Yeah.
It's not a separate corporation.
That is correct. And as far as we can tell by research, it's really the preference of the county. Across the United States, you see a very mixed bag. There's multiple terms for a county executive. Mayor is one of them. But it's a split, and we don't want to belabor that point. Really, if you take all the points of our audits, and again, this is performance, not necessarily strict financial. It's very broad. If you if it isn't related to code, and a must or shall in the code, and you don't like it as a council, I respect that. It's just us saying, here is an independent audit and review, take it or leave it. And it sounds to me like you're wanting to leave it, and I would say, totally understand.
What we're trying to understand is how did that even come up
Yeah.
in an audit? How did that even come about?
How does that belong in an audit? I don't get that. We don't understand.
You'd
Answer it.
I can have you talk to one of the attorneys who performed the audit, and that would be probably the best way because I was not the one who performed the audit. And so I'm saying, we talked to the offices, we talked to the experts, and I did personally see that it caused confusion. I can speak for that, but I'm not here to say that I performed the audit. I oversaw the audit.
So you don't even know how we got going down that trail for that question, or how it even came about?
Well, it was pointed out. I've heard from multiple people.
Who?
Multiple people.
Well, let me just weigh in on one thing. Title 17, since we're in Title 17, and we have the various chapters running from chapter 2 to chapter 54. I do see chapter 53 specifically states county executive. I don't see another chapter in this whole damn thing that says county mayor.
Yeah, so the audit shouldn't even address that, I don't think.
Yeah, we're just wondering,
Well, in the code, it does state that the county executive can be either called the county executive or the county mayor. Salt Lake County it really is not a big deal.
Salt Lake County screwed up.
They're a way bigger county than we are.
We don't want to be anything like Salt Lake County.
Point taken. But again, don't take that as your focus. If you take away that somebody asked for the title of, or thinks that the title of executive should be mayor, don't let that be your focus. Focus on the code, because the code is what's important. That was an observation of our department.
Well, there's only 4 findings. I mean, there's 4 findings, that's number 4.
Yeah.
And there's some other findings that are also, I mean, we're picking on that one, but we could probably go pick on a couple others pretty good. I guess this is just finding number 4 was highlighted, so it's not like we dug in there to.
I just worry, but if that's where you're headed into and something like that, I'm going, then I'm not giving a whole lot of credence in the other findings either, as to what sent you down the road for those. Someone told you to go down that road?
No.
So that we can, change this and this?
I'm not here on a witch hunt. I'm not here to try and throw anyone under the bus of who our sources were or anything like that. We did conduct interviews, but we don't just say who the interviews were. A lot of these are anonymous interviews from departments, because we're not here to try and say, and this person told us this, and this person told us this, and this is the person who told us that they were out of compliance here. You don't do that in an audit. You can use expert opinion on things where they say we're out of compliance or this, but you don't throw people under the bus. And so I won't.
So what's the frequency of these audits, or what determines who or what office goes for an audit?
So, yeah, so this one, we wanted to perform these for newly elected officials. And we are at the discretion of the council. We are the clerks of the council as well as the auditors of the council. And so you may direct us, but we are also the auditor of the executive. So the executive may request an audit, and we did believe that that was a good audit because they're brand new to their role. And so really what my request would be is, moving forward, anyone who's new to their role, the council should, or the executive should, request an audit. And obviously if it's my office, then they should request an independent audit. But if it's the assessor, who very well may be retiring in the next few years, we should have an audit of that function to see, is there software? If you'll notice, we included software. We didn't just say, again, it wasn't all about just the title. We included software that should be used in the recorder's office and could be used, and how to allocate specific funding, and how much funding there is, and why it's not good to be used to just be collecting fees that don't have a reason to be collected other than we can.
So, I understand that, but let's go back to item 2 where it talks about the surveyor.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying you want a new office for a surveyor, and in there about fraud and waste? I don't think a contractor or an appointed official is limited to fraud and waste. I think that can come from an elected official to an elected official or anything else. So I'm drilling on 2 and 4, and I know you're just saying these are the results, but
yeah,
from an audit to find these findings throws my head in a spin.
Well, I would just say, can the council give us a good reason why the executive should be the surveyor?
You said it was a contracted position, right?
That is correct.
Look at the records for when it changed. It's been changed for many years. I believe Carl's brother was the last surveyor. Is that correct? Did you guys look at that to see what the reasons were that they changed over?
We did.
What did it say?
Had to do with cost, a
Bingo.
large part. You could,
You can include that in here to explain to people who didn't know that, why it was changed before making a recommendation?
we can still save the cost, and we gave the ways that you could do that. And that was, you could combine this with the recorder's office.
What I would love to see on cost is how much have we been spending on surveys over the course of the last year since we had a surveyor that we were paying for as an elected official in another office. Have we saved money or not?
That's a good question. We can take a look at that.
I think that's what an audit would show. I mean, if we're wasting money by going outside for a contractor, then it might be time to relook at it. But if we went to it for cost and we've been successful in that over the years, then I would be very reluctant to change that.
I just want everyone to know, an audit can't look at all things, at all places, in every little crack that there is, and every opinion and viewpoint. You can only take in so much. We took in what we could handle and manage, and then we expounded upon that. So our finding was that there is potential there, that someone who's in charge of zone, or in charge of the departments, such as development services, and then they're also in charge of the surveyor. There is potential there for fraud, waste, and abuse. So your point is well taken, though, Paul.
Has there been fraud in the past?
No. As stated earlier, we have not seen any. But it does make sense. Again, council, when you think of your executive, when you think of a mayor, when you think of your county executive, do you really think of your surveyor as fitting into that bucket? Or could it be better placed somewhere else? And that's all we're saying, is just, it fits better elsewhere.
Well, when you say county executive versus county mayor, when you look at us as a council, are we a councilor or are we a commissioner? I mean, you've got those differences, and we get called both. And so, name to me, and I understand we're picking on you, but you put those points here and we're reading them. So that's where we're coming to.
Well, again, I'd say, if you look up county executive, look up the etymology, the name, history of county executive. It's interchangeable with county mayor. It's not like this is a new concept. This is just something that a lot of people use county mayor, a lot of people use county executive, other people use some other terms. It's not something that is a commission versus a council. So it comes from, you say you don't want to use the Salt Lake, but we're using an East Coast specific. Half the time I wouldn't want to be associated with some of the things they do, but your points are respected and taken, and that's not one that you have to take in and agree with. I guess that's my biggest thing. The code, yes. Is there potential for fraud, waste, and abuse? Yes. That doesn't change the fact that you don't like it, but there is potential there.
Yep. Maybe to sum this all up, and maybe the rest of the council feels the same way I do, but Dave made a good point, and I guess my feelings are, we have been functioning very well for a lot of years, and the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So why is it we're trying to go in and find something that isn't broken, hasn't had problems, has been functioning well, and why is it now we're throwing out all of these possibilities that for something that has worked very well for a long time? And Cache County really has been set apart for a long time in the state and everywhere as a very well managed and well functioning government entity serving our constituents. And that's what we're all about. None of us sit here because we want people to look at us and say, hey, I'm on the county council. or I'm the county executive, or I'm the county attorney. It's not an ego trip. It's
Yeah.
because we want to be here to make sure that things work properly. And so, I guess, I don't know, council, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Some of the things are broke, though. I'll say that.
But you've got to point out specifically why and what the consequences of it have been, and so that we can.
We're, specifically in the recorder's office, it's very plain. The executive's office is more nuanced. So nothing's black and white. I just want everyone to know, nothing's black and white in an audit. We're looking at things and saying best practices. I know people in their minds sometimes think of an audit as telling me, yes, this is correct, or no, this is incorrect. An audit is nuanced in some cases. And so for us, this is our nuance or our view.
No, we disagree.
Or this is our finding of a best practice.
You've got to be careful in audits. There is the funnel approach that happens in too many audits, where you are given, I want you to look into these things, which then leads you to an answer that I want. But we can't have that.
Counsel,
And that's why.
I don't know
that's
how
why
I
you need to
can
be very critical.
express that this is not what happened.
Independent audits need to be independent, that they look at everything.
We have the data that shows we looked at everything, and if you'd like to see it, we can share it. But in the highlights, you share your findings. These are the significant findings. The other ones were in compliance. And so
But you just said there were other problems. Why aren't they listed in the findings?
they didn't rise to the level of a finding, of something that was immediately needing correction. It was something that was either nuanced in some cases. Some things aren't always black or white. There's not, this is incorrect. This is something we may want to look at in the future. And I know that it's difficult, but that's kind of the way the world works. This is maybe incorrect, it may be correct.
No, I performed audits, and there were policies that I had to follow, and it was black, and it was white. Either you're following this, or you're not. And that's what findings should be.
That's exactly what an audit is. It is not nuanced. It is not, this is my opinion. Because that's not what we're trying to uncover. We're trying to uncover things that could get us in trouble.
And that's what we're looking for too, but we're also looking for
But
best
just
practices.
a name change, is that going to get us in trouble?
No, but it can,
So why, to Dave's point, why did that even come up?
it was something we felt could or could not have been included. We erred on the side of including it because we felt like it did have some confusion. But, Counsel, I don't understand why the focus is on the name change when we have
Not just
specific.
that. I think it's a lot of other little things that were in that audit report that we think, I mean, let's take the surveyor thing. What you said may have merit, but it needs to be black and white. It cost us this much in contract surveying versus it cost us this much when we had a full-time surveyor. And
Our argument was, even if we had taken that, our argument was there's potential for fraud, waste, and abuse. It's not black and white because there hasn't been any fraud, waste, or abuse.
Well,
But there's potential.
for fraud, waste, and abuse as soon as I get out of bed in the morning.
Put that in the minutes, Bryson.
Please do.
Well, that was my point. It's fraud and abuse can be two people getting together or even one person thinking it up. I mean, because we separated out of an office, we did not put a line that said no more fraud and abuse.
Yeah, it wouldn't cost any additional dollars, though, to move it to an office that made sense. I guess that's the biggest thing.
But I'm not seeing
But
fraud and
somebody
abuse
who's,
makes the sense to move the office.
To some, the executive office does make sense, because it doesn't make sense, there's a conflict of interest when you put it with the recorder. You can't have the person who's surveying also recording. Those two need to be separate. So there's a lot more to look at than just easily saying, oh, it needs to be moved from this one to somebody that makes sense. And I still don't understand how that also belongs in an audit. What I'm looking for when I see an audit is to see if they're following the codes that we have, their accuracy and reliability of the financial information. I don't see any of that. I think when a new person comes in, that's something that their office would want to look at to make sure there's nothing left over from the previous office that's going to cause problems for them or make it look like they were responsible for. So I'm really, quite frankly, shocked at what this audit said. It wasn't what I expected at all. And I just don't even understand where this whole thing about
I
the
sent
executive
this out
name came
weeks
from.
ago. Why hasn't the council discussed this with me? And why haven't they said, is there any additional information?
Discussing it with
Talking
you.
to
We
you
would
right
have
now.
we would have submitted this a month ago because we have line by line.
We're having good discussion. It is public, which is good discussion.
I feel like the council is saying there is no such thing as nuance. There is no such thing as anything that's not black or white. I was taught when I went to school, who decides what the law is? Now, I may not agree with the answer that I was told by my law professor, but they said the judge. The judge decides what the law is. And then you appeal that if you disagree with it, right? And so what we're doing is we're presenting, one, the findings of code, and then we're also presenting some things that we believe are good practices. They might not even have to be the best practices, but we believe maybe they're better practices than what we have. But you don't have to agree with all of them. Some of them you can say I like, some you can say I dislike, and that's all that you have to do. And if council says we dislike them for this reason, all you have to do is say we dislike them for this reason, and you don't have to do them. These are just presented as we believe there's issues, or we believe there could be issues here, and that's an audit, a performance audit. We're not explicitly looking to say this is fraud or waste or abuse. So it's a different kind of audit. It's truly a different kind of audit, performance-based. Performance. So.
Well, Jess,
Anyway.
thank you for your time. We appreciate you presenting this information to the council.
All right, thank you, council.
Okay, let's see, we are on, let's see, item 11A, County Grant Writer Manager Budget Proposal, Cameron Jensen. Council, if you remember last meeting, we discussed this and we were trying to figure out between us if we wanted to put something like this in next year's budget, if we wanted to put it in a budget opening for September to get a person online right away. And I asked Cameron to give us an update of the financial position and where we're at with this so the council can decide what we want to do.
And there it is. All right. So this will be very similar to kind of the question and answer we did last time, but I thought it may serve well to kind of document it out, present where things are at right now and what I think the cost will be if we go in this direction. So here's some of the key job description, the key features in the job description that we put in there, looking for not just somebody who is talented at presenting or going for, what's the word I'm looking for, trying to persuade somebody to give money, but something that demonstrates that they have good experience in doing that. So they are responsible to identify and develop new grant opportunities, not just manage ones we already have. They are to have experience managing, directing pre-award development and post-award financial management when we're closing out grants. So the idea here is from beginning to end, we're looking at assistance with managing the grants. They would be working with department heads on contracting when grant awards are presented, and that they could manage an implementation process. Also, wanted them to be able to understand and have experience with common grant management systems. And so we specifically in the job description listed some of those out. FedConnect, Grants.gov, SAM, ASAP, and the Diamond system. These are all related to federal grants. But if you're not familiar with these, then we need to find somebody else. They will necessarily work closely with my department in budget adjustments, the way the grants are spent. They would also need to be able to do the monthly and quarterly and annual reporting for the grants. So this is the type of a comprehensive look that we're talking about.
In that annual reporting, would that be somebody that could then come to us and say, hey, of our annual budget, this percentage or this dollar amount comes from grants?
Grants, yes.
You know, all grants, not just, you know, what they were responsible for, but I'd love to be able to look at the budget
Yeah.
and say, hey, you know, we're relying on this much from grants, not necessarily just the tax.
Right, right. And we'll try
this
to
is
make
what is
that more clear.
dedicated to that we have to add to it. You know, you want to see the big
Yes,
picture on.
yeah, so in that more detail, because we can point out, say, here's how much grant funding we have, here's our total budget, but how much of our budget was matched for that grant, those type of reporting. The monthly, quarterly, annual reporting also internal and external. So we would expect there to be reporting going on here, but also we have to have reporting back to donating agencies, right? Whether that's the federal government or whether it's a corporation or a nonprofit organization. So that's the type of reporting we're talking about there. There's still some unresolved talk. We didn't get very far with this, but we talked about where would this position sit. Some advantages to put them in the finance department is that these revenues obviously have a direct and a meaningful impact on the county budget, and that there's the potential for a lot of amendments to the budget. And as we're spending those budgets, we just would work closely together with that. In the executive office, we look at this position would have a lot of duties that aren't just financially based. So there's a lot of contacting individuals. There is a lot of working with the department heads on operations, not necessarily just on their budgets, but it would be operational in nature. Also, a lot of the contacting activities that happen with the executive office, it may dovetail really well to have a grants writer or a grants manager doing those types of things. The executive Zook mentioned about NACO and going back to Washington, D.C. That's a great place for a grant writer to be contacting our representatives that way as well. So in a nutshell, those are kind of the issues there that we can talk through. But either way, we would want to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of this position. Quantitative measures, we're looking for the quantity of proposals. It's not all about how many, in a sense, but it certainly is a little bit about how many you're proposing, right? How many grants are awarded? What is the total dollar amount awarded in those grants? Again, how much money has been raised? On a qualitative side, we want to know, are they a good writer? Is there clarity in their writing, their ability to have compelling arguments? Are they maintaining good relationships with funders, and are they working well with staff and program personnel? So whether it was in the finance department or in the executive office, those are the types of things that we'd want to evaluate this position on, and that's what we tried to include, those very specific things in the job description so that we could do that. The big question, I guess, is on cost, and so we're looking at pay rate and full benefits here. This job description, when I worked with HR, was looking at a $65,000, $75,000 annual salary or wage. So kind of in the middle there, if we had an hourly rate of $32 an hour and you put full benefits with that, family insurance and so forth, you're looking at about $105,000 annually. So if we say, oh, they also need a desk and a computer and that kind of thing, you know, another $5,000, $110,000 in the first year kind of idea. Going forward, matching funds, that's hard to say. You know what, if you get a $100,000 grant and it's a 20% match, I can tell you exactly it's $20,000. If you get $1 million grant and, you know, this 4.95% match, it's all different, but it would depend on how much they're out there and able to raise money. Right now, we certainly could use a grants manager on all of our ARPA and CARES Act stuff that we've been working with. It's been a tremendous workload on my office, just learning those rules and learning how they apply and what we can use those for. Having somebody to go to that they can not only be digging deep into that, but also getting part of the grant then can be spent on paying for that position to the amount that they're spending time learning those grants. So, and that's often the case with other grants as well. You can cover administrative costs. And so we hope that while that $105,000 in year one, it would maybe grow from there, but that most of that, if not all of that, would be covered by the grants that are coming in. Oftentimes, we would expect that to be the case. If we moved forward in hiring this position and you could hire early September, we'd be looking about a $35,000 adjustment this year based on the $105,000. So hopefully that wasn't too fast, not a long presentation, but that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at and what I think it will cost. Is there any questions with that?
Do you guys have any questions? Do you have any answers?
Yeah, maybe one question I have is, do we continue to move forward with that, or do we let that sit for now? Should I work with HR?
I have a
or
question,
should I-
because you said, does it fall under finance or does it fall under the executive? Did you talk to HR and where does this niche fit?
I did. I spoke with Amy, and she essentially had the same question. That was a question rolling around in the back of my mind, and she approached me and asked me that very question without a strong opinion or a recommendation for either case. She was almost looking for guidance from me on what my thoughts were on that.
Well, it would certainly be something that's measurable based on the monthly, quarterly, and annual reports as to how much letters going out and everything else, so.
Seems to me like it would fit well under finance, because it's a finance office, and y'all are talking numbers there and working together.
Yeah, those are definitely the side of
They
things
get to
that bring
coordinate
it
the
in.
matching and what's coming in
They
and.
can coordinate together and talk to each other.
Yeah, for sure. So in some ways, when I look at that, I do that with every department head though, right? Every department costs a lot of money, and we constantly coordinate what their budget is. And so in some ways, bringing grants in to me is not necessarily any different. A lot of those grant dollars will belong in other department budgets, right? But no, I don't have anything against having it in the finance department either though. So if that seems the best fit, we can move forward in that direction.
Can this position be something that's reviewed on effectiveness?
Should be.
So, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, it's
All
3 years.
positions should be.
Yeah.
Is
Right.
Does it ring in a positive, or is it
Yeah.
a higher level of bureaucracy that's
Right. So those are some of the things I tried to nutshell. Maybe we could expand those out. But yeah, I think there's definitely those types of evaluations to be made. I think it could be offered on a soft money kind of an idea that this is a new position to a county where it's maybe a little bit experimental, and so you try it for a few years and say, hey, we think it's worked well, or maybe it's not worked well. Certainly universities have those types of positions, and so if that's the thought process, we could do that way as well. But having said that, I think, like Dave said, I think really any of our positions are that way. We have evaluations on an annual basis, and this position would be like any other one that should be evaluated that way. If it turns out that it's just costing a lot, then maybe we would abandon it in the future.
John, you wanted to say something?
We would need to look at how you structure that within the framework of merit employment.
I think if it was just a simple matter of this is not costing us, it's just a reduction in force.
Council, is this something you want to keep moving forward with, or what's your preference?
I think, especially from now through 2026, with the millions of dollars that's being sent to us, and tracked, and details of it, and a lot of that might halfway through, all of a sudden you got to get a match, or these are the things we need to keep on top of. And if your office, is swamped with the daily stuff currently right now, and then we dump this all on you, I think we need to keep pursuing something just to track all that and keep with it, because I think rules are going to change midstream on these kind of funds as they're hitting us, and that's what's scary.
Yeah. That happened a little bit last year with some very heavy pushback from things like the League of Cities and Towns and from NACO and from the Government Finance Officers Association, among others, that as some of those rules tried to change midstream, there was a lot of national help to say, hey, don't change the rules on the game right now. But having said that, they've introduced their rules right now as the interim final rules, and the final rules are yet to be out there. So there are those kind of things. As far as administrative burden, certainly there's been a tax on our office.
Also, I think one of the other big drives on this was, I know with Terrell over there, and she was pulling her time away to do a lot of these things, when in reality, I'm not saying you were not effective, but I'm saying that she needed to be over here, boots on the ground with the people. And it was pulling her away from other things which this person needed to be or could be doing.
And to Dave's point, I mean, there's nothing more infuriating than a federal program, right? They just have people sitting there to make sure you put a comma in the right place or you don't get your cash. And the worst is when they give you the cash and they say you didn't put the comma in, you got to pay it back. So I think there's a lot of that we need to be on top of.
Cameron, if we were to approve this to hire for September 1st, where's the money coming from? You know, what's our budget?
Yeah, the immediate cash flow would just come from unused revenues. Actually, this year we still have a surplus of revenues from the current year. In the long run, we would hope that this position would cover itself through grant funding.
So are you wanting to put this in our September budget opening, or do you want it sooner and pull it out singly and do it in August as its individual budget opening to establish it, or?
As a matter of amending the budget, it could be done in September. The only time a budget amendment is absolutely needed is when you're going to overexpend your budget before you amend it. So even if we hired this person prior to that, there's money in the budget that would cover that until it was amended. It would overexpend by the end of the year for sure, but hiring somebody September 1st, if we can even do that, and having them on board for 2 weeks isn't going to overspend the budget at all. So September would be soon enough, a regular scheduled amendment.
A regular scheduled, okay.
Well, then I would propose that we look at, given the permission, go ahead and hire someone by September 1st. That's what I'm proposing.
Or, I guess as soon as possible.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Possible.
Okay.
It may not happen by then.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to hire a grant manager writer as soon as possible. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Just one point of clarification, then, is that to be in the finance department?
Yes.
Yes.
Then we'll advertise it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Okay. Next on the agenda, item 11B, request for a chief deputy recorder position from our recorder, Devron Anderson. Devron, thank you for coming.
Thank you, council, for having me. Good evening. Yeah. Just pull up a slide here for you.
While he's pulling this up, I'll just say the issue here is that the request is for higher than the 95% of market rate that our Director of Human Resources can approve. So we need to give council approval if that's the direction we wish to go.
Yeah, thank you. So, thanks. As we've discussed before, the recorder's office has experienced a 66% increase in workload, which has been a significant increase in workload. And up until May of 2021, our staffing hadn't changed through all of that time and through all that increase. And we've discussed this before. You guys were gracious enough in March to allow me to get new positions in my office. We have tried to recruit and post those positions, and we've had difficulty hiring for those positions. The one position that we're in desperate need of right now to help us get caught up on our backlog and stay current with that workload is a chief deputy recorder position, someone who has good title experience to be able to help process these parcel changes that come through our office. We have advertised for that position 3 times. We've received 1 qualified applicant. We interviewed that applicant, and we made a job offer at the 95% rate of the average pay which is what our guidelines allow us to do with HR, and that offer was declined. It wasn't enough for the person to take that position. And so I've reached out to that person since we've advertised again and not had any qualified applicants since. That person's still interested in coming to the county. So I basically said, what's your bottom line? What would you be willing to accept to come to the county? And so what I'm requesting from the council would be that we be allowed to hire to the 115% of the average market value for that position, which is $14,000 above the offer that we made. There's also been a request that with this hire that we potentially could front load some PT time for this individual, where this individual is a seasoned professional that's leaving a 20-year career to potentially come work at the county. It's a difficult pill to swallow, to go from having time and availability to spend with your family on vacation and then start accruing at 0. We're not asking for a change in the accrual rate, just with the possibility of front loading some of that so that this individual wouldn't lose out on that in the first couple of years of their employment here. Do you have any questions on what we're requesting?
It's kind of a desperate situation you're in.
I do feel that it is. Me and my staff are doing everything we can to keep up, and we just aren't able to keep up with that kind of a work increase or workload increase.
Was that your last slide?
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could go back to the first one. Looked like there was a lot of information here. So when did this increase start? It's kind of hard to read the dates there.
It's been, from what the data is from the documents recorded in our office, this increase started around July of 2019, but it took a significant jump in around March of 2020. And I had hoped that this would be a spike in our data and that the numbers would be coming down and we could get a handle on it. But in the 6 months I've been here, that has not come down at all. It's just stayed steady up at that high rate. So we're we're underwater here with not being able to keep up with that work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess my question was more, when did this become a problem, would you say?
I don't know, because I wasn't here, but when I started, that yellow line on the graph is when I started. I know when I started there was a backlog of these parcel segs that needed to be done, and we haven't been able to make progress on catching up on those. I mean, we've been able to do them, but the new ones are backing up on us too. Does that make sense?
Last time you were here, Devon, I think we talked about the possibility of trying to get, for lack of a better word, pinch hitter, somebody come in and just help you and maybe do some contract work. How did trying to go that direction, what happened trying to go that direction?
Well, a couple things with going that direction. One, I'll just start off with what's closest to me and how I personally feel about this. I think doing the parcel changes in the recorder's office and making sure that that work gets done properly, that's my number one job as a recorder. It's my number one responsibility to make sure that the taxpayers, the people that own this property, that their property changes are getting done properly and that the assessment is from there forward is going to be fair with them on their tax assessment. So I personally do not like the idea of giving up our number one job to contracting that out. There are other areas of our office that we can contract out, and I would be willing to contract out, and I've looked into some of those already. But with this particular question, it would be difficult for me to contract that out. I would feel like I would need to have very tight controls and review of that anyway. And I can get that in my office. I just need to fill the positions that I have. I did reach out to some, a few, not very many. It was a week ago that I was here. I hadn't been able to spend a lot of time looking into it. But I did reach out to the other 29 county recorders, and a lot of them responded to me. There weren't any that responded, and obviously there were some that didn't respond, but there was no response from any of them that they'd ever contracted out this particular type of work from the recorder's office. I did reach out to a couple of owners of title companies that I'm friends with, and they both, the two that I talked to, both expressed concern in this market with the amount of work that's going on in the title industry, that those that are able to do this work are already working overtime to try to keep up with their company's demands. And so they expressed to me that they doubted that if I was able to find someone to come in and help do this work, that they would be doing the work properly and well and not already occupied doing that work. So does that kind of answer your question with that?
Very well, thank you.
Besides falling behind, since, I guess before you took over, you're saying, and then you've taken over, how about the quality that is demanded by the professionals that are trying to use this information and need this information?
I think obviously there's a bit of a learning curve with somebody that's doing something new, and I'm trying to train. There's only one person in my staff that's not doing a new position. So we are trying to learn and trying to do the best we can with this. I feel like the actual parcel changes that we are getting done are getting done well and getting done correctly. They're just behind. They're very, very behind.
Are there any policy changes that have been made since you have taken over that is creating even a bigger backlog?
I don't believe so. There is one policy that I have tried to stick to with these recordings, and that is to do them in the order that they're coming in. For instance, there are documents that come in for somebody that wants to separate part of their land that come in, let's say, January 6th, and I try to make sure I work from the back to get those done before I do the ones that are coming. I know there are some that are coming in now or more recently that are maybe bigger projects or maybe more important projects to the people that are doing them. I don't think it's right to get those done immediately while there are some that are on the back burner that are waiting to be done. So,
have you declined help from people that have offered to come in and help you?
I don't know.
That are professionals that maybe know the system, know the business, that have offered, and have you declined that help?
No, I haven't.
Have you been negative to some of these companies and stuff that have come in and not willing to work maybe closely with them as much?
I haven't had any companies approach me to offer help with doing these parcel segs. So I'm not sure what you're referring to. I have had a lot of people contact me and say, why aren't my projects done? And I've tried to explain to them that we're working as fast as we can to get these done, but I haven't been contacted by any companies to help get this work done.
Individuals or anywhere?
No, I have not.
I'm sitting here, dazed, confused, bewildered, all those, because I called and talked to some of the people who use the recorder's office, and there's concern there from those people. I'm concerned because they tell me this is only going to get a bigger problem down the road, but then I also look on the county side, and if I feel this right, if we hire somebody who is a chief deputy and we're moving away from this 95 to the 115th, that steps outside of the role of the human resources person and puts it on the council. Then we also have to look within the county, any other title that's that, and did we change that range, and now we've got another chief deputy who is saying, what happened? So I'm concerned about what we're meeting for what's going on for the commercial side and our constituents and our citizens, because this isn't being done in a timely manner. But I'm also concerned about meeting and being fair with existing employees when we step over this bound. And so I called HR and I said, have we looked at recruiters, headhunters? And I know that headhunters put a different cost on there, but it seems that opens up to a different demographics than what we've been advertising to. And so the contract person and all those, so I'm sitting here with this scale of what are we doing to meet the demand of people who are buying and selling property and doing it in a timely manner and getting it recorded, but also the issue of what's being happening to existing employees and what's fair. Does that make sense from that standpoint? And I don't know how we bring that together, because it's concerning. And that we get this done to meet these guys who are needing this report in a timely manner and don't step in front of a train.
I have a question. If no one's come forward and offered to help you, would you be open to, say, individuals coming forward to help you?
Sure, I would be open to do it. I have individuals in my office right now that I'm trying to train to get to the level where they can do this on their own. So my one hesitation with working with others is that I'm already don't have enough time to train the people in my office. That's exactly why I'm trying to get a professional level person in my office to help with that training and help get all of us to where we need to be quicker.
What if this individual already knew what was going on and were willing to come in and help?
I would be happy to look at that. Absolutely.
John?
I've been involved in some of these discussions, and there's not been, to my understanding, time to follow up on this one, but I understand that our GIS people may have enough background to step in and help.
Well,
Ron and those folks are going to talk, and I know there's not been time for that, but I think that I want to put that as a potential avenue to explore.
According to the GIS director, though, he doesn't know the full process of how these work. He said he...
It would be well to find out how close.
Sure. And I expressed that in my email, but in his email he expressed that he doesn't know the full range. So I know what the quickest way to get from A to B is, and that's to get someone that I can train and retain in my office to do this work. I'm happy to look elsewhere, but I believe that's going to be a longer process and take more time and more effort away from actually getting the qualified people that I need to keep in my office doing these.
Devron, when I came in your office and watched you do one of these segs, because I was curious what went into it, and part of it looked like someone could do it, but then as you got along and you got into checking that legal description, that looked like that was the challenging part. And is that the part that you're concerned about, making sure that that legal description is accurate? Because sometimes the way it's written doesn't really match up with what's there, and you've got to figure out the difference and how to make it work. Is that, am I saying that correctly?
That's one of the areas that I'm concerned about. There's multiple different areas where this can go wrong or this can be done inappropriately that can have a negative result on the people. Yeah, that's one of the areas, and I'm open to sharing that with anybody. I'd be willing to have anybody come into my office anytime and look at what we're doing. I'll spend a whole day with you. I'll spend a whole week with you. But I'm going to continue to do the work and try to train the people in my office to get that work done. And that's the best route for me to go at this point. I need to get the people there, and I need to get them trained because I need them not just now, not just in the short term. I need them for years to come.
When John mentioned GIS, Chris had his hand up. Can we hear from him?
Oh, I didn't see Chris. Yeah, Chris, do you want to come up so we can hear you? Thank you, Nolan. I didn't see that.
No problem.
I've had some discussion with our GIS admin, Kerry Jenkins. He's very interested, and we're willing to help out where we can. There's no hesitation there. They'll put in extra time. We'll make up the time with overtime if need be. They're willing to do that. There's a huge benefit and value to not just the recorder's office, but the entirety of the county to get that backlog cleared out. Because that's putting pressure on everybody. And I know Devron's aware of that. I'm just expressing we're more than willing to assist. We are hoping to have some discussion, I think, today, but that was delayed. So there is an interest there. And I'll put forward again what John's already expressed, that there is a capability and an interest in understanding what else needs to happen on the SAG portion and working with Devron to see where that gap might exist. So that's all I'm going to add. There's been that discussion. There's an interest there. It's not that we feel like we're lacking the capability. It's that we want to be on the same page with the recorder's office about what could or may be required to occur.
Thank you, Chris. Nolan, to your comment, I've been thinking about that same thing. I'm concerned about that same thing.
It's a huge issue.
It is a huge issue, but to me, there's one difference with maybe what other departments would ask or need. I feel like this is just a perfect storm. I think it is a very unique situation. It's a very critical situation that we need to be getting this stuff done for all the other offices in the county. I mean, that stuff has got to get to the assessor's office, and we all know that. And not only that, but we've got to serve the public. And so my perspective is, I think Devron's work to try to get that initial number for the salary down, and I'm supportive of this. I think that we need to move forward and get this stuff taken care of, and that this would be a good way to accomplish that. And I really think it's a perfect storm, and I think that if others come to council and want to do the same thing, that they're going to need a perfect storm like this, and I just don't see that we're going to have something. To the 100-year storm, I think this is a 100-year storm. So,
But I think, and John can answer this, legal side, but if we go there, we can't come back from a standpoint of other employees who were titled that same way and who were looking to say, okay, I've given a chief deputy this kind of wage and I have an existing chief deputy somewhere else. The equalization or the comparativeness or the fairness to somebody in that same area, I think then your budget becomes another issue. And I agree, we got an issue here, but I think both sides have got to be equally looked, and that's why I'm saying the GIS, Dave's point, and I talked to some of the others out there, getting somebody in to do that while we ascertain what is going to hit HR or the budget from other employees within the county.
I don't want my silence after you say that to be misinterpreted. I don't know that binds you. Amy would be better able to answer that. But
It totally binds you with morale.
Yes.
And he said there's concern
From a
there.
legal standpoint, but however you're factoring in your own internal salaries into that matrix of where you come up with your range, then that would be a new number if that is factored in. And I don't know Amy's process that.
I asked Amy that question. I talked to her about this. I asked her this question about 2 weeks ago. And I said, well, right now we have, I believe, 4 other chief deputies. 3 of them get paid more than this, some of them significantly more than this. So all but 3 of the current ones get paid more than what Devron is asking for. So I asked her that question. I said, well, why don't you use those 4 as comparison and base the salary on those 4 that we already have with that same title? And she said, it's because of the duties. They all have different duties, significantly different duties. And what she was looking at in her salary survey and salary study was other positions that had similar duties. And just because they all have that same title of chief deputy, she didn't feel like she could use those to compare them to each other because their duties were too different.
So I don't think in a legal sense, that binds you to the numbers. It's more in the morale sense or the perceived precedent that you're setting.
But the precedent we've already set is that chief deputies make more than this.
Based on duties.
What's that?
Based on duties.
Based on duties.
Based on duties.
Based on their individual duties, not based on their title.
and I want to apologize that Amy isn't here, or excuse Amy, I guess is the thing. She needed to travel for a meeting for tomorrow, and I thought we'd be okay without her, so.
Devin, I got a couple of questions. One is, So what are the basic things the recorder by code is to do? And are there things currently being pursued or happening that is not necessary and out of code? Do you understand what exactly the recorder is to do?
I'd like to believe I understand what the recorder's supposed to be doing, yes. I can tell you, Dave, that there are things that I should be doing, the recorder should be doing, that we've stopped doing because we are focused on trying to get these parcel segs done. We can't even begin to talk about how to do our ownership maps in our office because we can't even get past the point of getting these caught up on these parcel segs. There are records, digitization that need to be done and could be very beneficial to the people. I can't even go there. I don't have time to go there because I'm trying to catch up on these parcel segs. Does that answer your question?
I'm going to follow through. Was it the internal process? Was that a huge roadblock when you hit that, trying to learn the internal, how Cache County does things?
No. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Is that what hit the roadblock for you, or where was all sudden bang also? And I guess what I'm saying is, I think, did you reach out to the people that knew that process so well?
Yes, the people that know this process so well have been very intimately working with us on this. IT has been very integral in helping us learn how to create these segs and how to create these parcels in our system.
Past recorder knew the process left and right. Did you reach out to him?
No, I haven't.
What a wealth of information and training that he could have provided.
There is differences in the way that we are doing what we are doing now.
Policy has changed internally.
The way that we draft these and look at them and analyze them to make sure that they are being done right is different since I started, yes.
Has it slowed the process, though?
I don't believe it has. I believe what slowed the process is a 66% increase in workload. How do you handle 66% increase in workload without increasing your number of staff?
Okay, and I don't want to take it, I followed your process here and how you described how you got to this person that you want to hire.
Okay.
Okay, and he's the only one that you went out and I guess you found him, right?
I asked him to apply because no one else had applied.
No one else had applied, and you went out, and then he came back, and now all of a sudden he won't do it for that much money, and then we go back.
Sure.
That process scares me.
Me too.
Because to me, I look at it as collusion.
Yeah, I wish I had.
It scares me that is that how all of our departments are gonna start working? They're just gonna go try to find someone that they really, want, and then, hey, I'll go get some more money, and then we'll pad your wallet that way to get you here. And I mean, those kind of things, I don't think that's a real open, and it's a good policy or not policy, but it's a good way to start a trend for county government.
Okay.
That scares me there.
So are you accusing me of collusion with someone?
No, I'm saying it looks like when we go out and we find and we manipulate and we back and forth, I'm starting to say, hey, you're colluding with them to get just them?
Well,
did you open it up for everybody at that same price?
Absolutely. I asked.
But we hadn't even given you the permission to do that.
I asked other people to apply for this job. He wasn't the only one. I have asked people to apply for this job. They haven't applied. We posted the position at its entry level the first 2 times. This last time we posted it at the offer that we made him, and we still have no applications. I'm not colluding with anyone, Dave. I'm trying to get someone here that can do the job.
You posted it at 74 or 88?
The last time we posted, I said, please post it to 74, which is the 95% of what we're allowed, the max we're allowed to offer.
So here's a question, when we post it, where is that posted, or what is that process of wanting applications?
I don't know. That's a question for Amy.
Well, how far do we go? Because I'm saying, I asked HR this morning, have we used recruiters, have we used headhunters, how far do we go in posting that? I mean, what's the depth, the penetration that job announcement gets to?
I don't know the full answer, but I can tell you what Amy told me this last time we posted this job. She said she paid an extra $500 to get this out to multiple different places that it doesn't normally go. So I don't know, I know that much.
Council, do you want to take any action? If you want to, we could put this on our special meeting agenda, so it's only a week. We could add this on.
Well,
If that's something you want to do.
I wonder about, would it be worthwhile to bring in some GIS people and see if they can make an impact, see if they can move it until we can find somebody to bring in at.
What if we also do that? What if we do this and that? I feel like we're trying to come up with other solutions, but Devon has a solution. He just needs your support for the solution. We can still look at other solutions to support him and help him to get caught up. But I think he has a good solution here, and he's only asking for a couple $1,000s. I know this is not a good process. I agree with you, Dave. I don't want us to have this kind of a process where we're going back and forth and trying to get more money for positions. However, I feel like we're gonna be having a lot more challenges like this. Just today, we lost a really good employee who got offered twice as much money as what we were paying him. We're gonna see more of that happening, and it's gonna be difficult because of our economy, what's going on. We've gotten the job posting out there a bunch of places. I don't think we've gone to Headhunter specifically, but I talked to one 2 weeks ago. She said she has hundreds of job listings that she can't fill. She can't find people to fill. So I am totally willing to get any and all of our departments to support Devron, and I've talked to him already about several potential options. We will continue to look at those, and if we can get GIS people helping, then we'll do that too. But I think he has a great proposal here, and we've got a whole bunch of people here who came tonight, I think hoping to see some glimmer of help here to help Devron get caught up. And I think we should do that. I think you should do that. I would urge you to support this and give him the extra funds he needs to get somebody on board ASAP.
You're asking us to support, but you're asking the council to override an issue that HR has. And my concern is to look at the current employees who have put time and effort into everything from the county, and that we look at those things. So I understand the need. I mean, we've got people from the county who are here to say, this recorder's office needs some help and there needs some work in there. But I also think we've got some employees from the county who are saying and watching to say, what are you doing here to meet this? You said a perfect storm. We're in a perfect storm for hiring anywhere. I mean, I've got businesses out there who can't hire truck drivers, who can't hire operators. I mean, this is an issue, but we've got to look outside the box as to how do we fix the recorder's office, and to me, not slap every other county employee who's been here.
Every one of them had an opportunity to apply for this job if they wanted to. None of them have applied.
Well, but they wouldn't have the qualifications to do so.
They could have applied for county attorney, but they don't necessarily qualify. If you don't qualify for the job, you don't get the pay for that. I don't see this as a slap in the face to our employees. Do we need to pay our employees more? Yeah, absolutely. This environment that we're in right now shows that we have a lot of catching up to do. But just because of those other issues, I don't think that should limit us from fixing this problem. This is a big problem that has to be fixed, or we're going to have more problems. I think Devron has a great solution. It's $14,000 that we're talking about here to fix a really big problem.
It's $100,000. It's not $14,000.
We've already been approved to offer $74,000, so $14,000 would be to the level we need to be. I think to your point, Nolan, there are employees right now that are working at max capacity that are feeling like the longer this goes, they're getting unfairly treated at the county too. So there is a lot of issues. I'm not trying to say what you're saying is not an issue, but we are so close to getting a beginning to a solution to this end that would be long-term for us.
95 to 115%. That has to come to the council to step outside of that. So in your address, we are being different than we have been to every other employee, right?
Yes. But that's based on your rules that you set in the personnel policy. You said in the personnel policy that you gave the HR director discretion to set the salary up to that 95%, and that if the salary were to be set higher than that, it would have to come to you for approval. So it's part of the policy already. It's in place. There is a mechanism for it to be fixed, and that's what Deborah is trying to do, is ask you for authorization to be able to offer more than that. But I think there's a bigger issue here. Those numbers, and we've had this discussion with Amy and with Deborah, and that 95%, I think if we did a more detailed study and looked at more of the market, that we would find out that that number should actually be closer to 115%. What I mean by that is what Deborah has said multiple times. If the study looks at other recorders' offices and what they've been paying, then that's what you're going to find. But if you look at the actual market and who we're competing with, the title companies, and what people are getting paid, and who we're trying to draw this person from, they're getting paid more. So that's what we're competing with. Our economy, our market study, includes people who are getting paid more than what was in that market study that came up with this 95 and 115%. So I don't know if that's really an accurate depiction of what is happening or what the percentages should be when we're really competing against a market that's paying a lot more than that. And I think that was the intent of these studies. And I think if we did a more detailed study and we're able to get that data from the private sector, that it would support it. But how long would that take? Is that even possible? I don't know. But does anyone doubt that that's the market we're dealing with? The market we're dealing with is paying more than this. That's why he's not getting anybody applying. That's why he's not getting anybody accepting.
And go ahead. I might swear. Go ahead.
I wonder if, a couple of things. I think that since I'm sitting at an attorney desk, from an exposure standpoint for the county, time is of the essence. And my understanding from being in some of these discussions is that even with bringing on one person, that it will still be a fair amount of time before we are caught up. And so from where I sit, and that's why I brought up the GIS potential option, I don't know if that's one that needs to be more discussion. There may be other people who others are aware of that would come in and work. I think those options ought to be explored regardless of what you do with a chief deputy position. And that's my And on the chief deputy position, Dane just suggested, and I agree, that perhaps to avoid the appearance of collusion or whatever, if you did approve the 115, maybe that doesn't go out immediately to the one individual, but it gets advertised, and see if that does bring in multiple candidates, so that it doesn't look like there's been a single target, but which would extend the process of finding the long-term solution potentially. But again, that's why I think regardless of what you do with the chief deputy long-term solution, whether you hold that to 95% and take who you can find at that level and train them over the long haul, or up it to the 88 or whatever the number is, then as Dane says, let's advertise that, see if you get more than one candidate at that level. But those are the long-term solutions. One may be a little quicker than another, but I think in the short term there still ought to be, as David says, maybe the combination of let's still get in some folks that may be able to help immediately to work on the backlog as you all figure out what approach you want to take on the long haul at the chief deputy position.
I asked Amy where she advertised this. She said she advertised it on Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, KSL, Facebook, Workforce Services, USU, our Cache County website, LDS Jobs, LinkedIn, and about 30 other job boards and sites that are linked to those. And then in addition to that, she paid $600 for advertisements for this one to be promoted.
John, to your point, I'm happy to do whatever I can. I'm one person right now trying to train 2 individuals in my office to do these and trying to approach council to fix this solution. To take on training of contractors and other individuals, there's only so much I can do. So to have someone here, to have someone here that can also do these, like, similarly to my experience level to do these, would just be able to double potentially getting the help, and I'm willing to go that route. I'm not willing to. I'm willing to look at every option, but I agree, I don't want this to be an either or. I've already gone 6 months. I've been 3 months since March just trying to fill these positions and getting more and more behind.
That's why I just feel like it'd be nice if we don't take a year to get caught up. Let's,
for sure.
Which I think even hiring the individual that you're looking at, we're still talking months and months to get caught up.
Well, it would double what we're doing now, that's for sure.
Saying is exactly what, this is kind of the point I'm trying to get to here, is that this is not an immediate fix, bringing this gentleman in, which I don't think you'll even get him, to be honest with you. I know who you're going after.
I'd like to try.
But serious, so there's not even a promise made and we do this and all of a sudden, oh, we're still dead in the water, but all we did is just create a policy that we have to live with now. Okay? There is, right now, is that we don't have, these few months to, you're getting further and further behind and so forth. And to just train 2 people and try to get ahead of things, I don't think it's going to work. The other thing that's, I've talked with a lot of the businesses that really need this, and they need the confidence of the information that they get out of your office, and they're not getting it. They're having to sit there and they're going, hey, we're providing insurance on this information, and it's sketchy, and they're scared as to what's coming out of there. And now they're starting to go, well, we have to insure on this, and if we make insurance on this and then we come back, we have a perpetual lawsuit problem if we don't take care of this.
Sure.
So why not? Why don't we immediately go to a good fix of, or of local or whatever it may be, and let's find the people, just get them in there, rather than just find one individual, because he's going to have to still come in and he's going to have to learn our system. He will know segs, all that kind of stuff, but he'll have to still learn the internal system.
Sure. So what exactly are you suggesting? You say go local and get the people. Do you want me to contract? Do you want me to hire them? Do you want me, what are you suggesting?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's get those people in there that know what's going on and can help you immediately today.
How do I get them?
Who is
Because
that,
I've been
Dave?
advertising for them.
That's the part
This
I
is
don't
exactly
get.
what I've been advertising for.
You've got one gentleman right there that was in the office and he knows that system extremely well.
Okay.
Okay?
Would he work for me? Would he take direction from the elected official? Because he's already...
Would you be open? Would you be
Absolutely.
humble enough to eat a little crow and take some...
Absolutely.
And work with him? That's, hey, the bottom is past. This problem is past you as an elected official. This problem is a county-wide issue.
Absolutely.
There are patrons out there matter in hell right now.
Absolutely.
I talked with one here just a little bit ago, cost them $13,000 on an SBA loan because they didn't get it back fast enough. And that's what it's going to cost them more over time because their interest rate changed.
Yes,
Now,
absolutely.
things like that, but that's perpetual problems. So
can we address...
open that up, bring someone in there that says, hey, we understand this and we can help you train with internal. I think the opportunity's there.
So are you suggesting that we don't pursue any other avenues and go that avenue?
No, I'm not
Okay.
pursue other avenues. I'm saying, let's get something that'll work right now. We can move on it.
I'm open to that. Are you open to helping me with my plan to get this resolved too?
Then we can dig in and we can start finding more personnel at that point.
After that?
I don't think that this
So I
is-
can't do this yet?
I don't think this is this process that we're looking at here, I think is folly.
Okay.
And
I can-
I think it opens us up to issues that, okay, next time, are we gonna always sit here and say, when it's time to go above 95%, here it comes before the council? I'm not an HR guy. I don't wanna be doing this. But at the same time, you say there's been studies, there's been everything else out there. This is an issue bigger than what we all can grasp because we just don't have people applying for jobs because there's openings everywhere. So if we're saying, as Dave said, that we open, Mr. Zook, that we open up our pay range or everything else, or we open up situations because we stepped outside of this, or now we got a chief deputy that we paid this, the other chief deputies, look, and you said you got 3 that's already above that. To me, we've just brought issues into the county employees. I mean, a lot of employees are sitting out there. I want to be fair to them in all instances, but I'm just uncomfortable saying, okay, yeah, and this time we're going to step outside of this range when HR can't do it. But then, just like Dave said, we've opened that up to every time there becomes a job opening that we have got to go and participate that. I think, as I said before, I don't want to be the highest paying county and I don't want to be the lowest paying county. But we need to understand where those fall in there so that we're competitive from a county standpoint. We're never going to be competitive to the private sector. We just can't be that unless we plan on raising taxes.
Just to respond to the Mr. Glee coming in to help, there may be limitations on him getting paid to do that since he recently retired.
Well, that's passed.
It's past 6 years.
I retired years ago.
He retired years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Retirement system, yes, I retired in 2006 under a provision that allowed elected officials to retire and to continue working.
What, if there is interest in helping me, why is no one applying for this job? Why hasn't that application been made? I am willing to look at anybody that applies for this job. If the solution is to get that individual.
You're asking a question that probably needs to be asked, instead of at us, it can also be asked in the mirror on how, hey, how can I open up and work with a lot of people? And in other words, I've heard, and this is what I don't want to bring this out, but it's very important that we need to work with our constituents, the people that really need us the most. You need to be open to them. All of us need to be very open to them. When they come in and they need something, how can we help you get that? And we should never be blaming them. We should never be saying it's their fault and it's their fault and so forth. Hey, let's all look within ourselves, change, adapt, okay, build that bridge, we get over it, throw the egos at the door, which I'm hearing kind of a lot of building up, and we got to just blow those egos out the door. Let's make the changes and let's move on. And I think then we become very effective for ourselves and for the community as a whole. And then we build confidence. And so I think that'll help you, Deborah, and it'll help me, it'll help all of us as we do that together.
I appreciate that input.
So,
thank you.
Sorry.
I think a background on that is I called 3 different title agencies here in the valley to ask what was going on and how their perception was. And yes, there's a concern, and Mr. Zook, there's a concern from the county side that we got to get this fixed, as John pointed out too. But I think we've got to be watching things from a standpoint of what's fair to our employees on the same hand, and also what this does down the road if we step into this way.
One thing that we have not considered in all of this, which is in this office, is different from any other department in the county, is that this office charges a fee for the work that they do, and they bring in more fees than what their cost to deliver the services is. So this is a net positive revenue generator, as opposed to other departments that are negative revenues. And so we haven't considered that. When we talk about the issue with this chief deputy thing, I think it needs to be looked at differently, because again, we have a department that's a revenue generator over and above the cost of the services they provide. I mean, I don't know if there's legal problems this way, saying that you're charging this much and you're essentially making a profit because it's not costing you this much to produce it. And so I think we have to consider that aspect of this whole thing. We're charging this amount of money to perform this service. We better put the resources into it to provide the service. Otherwise, we shouldn't be charging that much for the recording
Well,
service.
code tells us what we get, what we
Yeah,
charge.
the state.
Yes.
Going down the same path, though, if we're charging fees, why don't we use those fees and then immediately fix it by bringing somebody in and getting this thing going right now versus the training period we're talking about and everything else of hiring somebody new?
Well, I think it can be done in tandem. Go ahead, John.
You mentioned that the fees are set by code. The interesting dynamic here is in other places where we set fees, we do have to be able to show that the fee is only equal to the cost of providing the service. So that is the general underlying principle, and it's enforced as we set other fees. But the state sets the recorder fees. But I think the principle is the same. I think that those fees are set with the idea in mind that this is what it takes to provide full recorder services. Whether the state's getting that exactly right or not is certainly debatable, but we aren't, I don't believe, legally going to be in trouble if we're not using all of the recorder fees in the recorder office. But the principle does apply. In principle, that's what it takes to run a recorder's office. And so it is different in that there is money there that in principle ought to be used, and that really is what is required to fully run a recorder's office, is the theory. So it is, Carl's correct. We won't be legally liable if we don't spend that all in the recorder's office.
Carl, I think that's a great point. People are paying for the service to get their property recorded, and we need to get it done. And I think the best way to do that is this and getting anybody else in there to help. It's got to get done. It's critical. We are in a crisis. We are putting the county at risk, a very legitimate risk, and we need to just get this done. And I'm worried about the employees, but I think that they'll understand that, like I said, this is a huge crisis, and we've got to work on the other wages and stuff too. We've got to take a look at this, but this is really an emergency, and we really can't wait any longer. We've got to get something done.
I would make a motion that we approve the request for the chief deputy recorder position as proposed by Devon, along with the requirement to go out and get Mike or whoever else would be qualified to step in here and get this problem solved in a significant hurry, because I think we have a real problem here that needs to be addressed and fixed. And I say this based on the fact that they are revenue positive, which is a lot different situation than any other department in the county.
I would second that motion, but also add to get GIS.
Oh, yes, adding GIS too. Yep.
Okay, so to make sure that I understand the motion, doing this is conditional on also adding a qualified person as like our our former county recorder, sorry about that. As well as GIS. So it's conditional, all three need to be done at the same time. Okay, so the motion,
Can I just clarify?
yeah,
Is the motion that you're requiring him to hire Mike, or that you're telling him to go out and see if you can find other people with that expertise?
Find other people that expertise.
We want him to
Definitely
find the
not
qualified people
Not
that-
overlooking Mike.
Yeah. Okay.
And is that, do you want me to bring them on a emergency, bring them into the county on an emergency hire, like a temporary? Or are we talking contract? How exactly do you want me to do that? Because I'm happy to do it.
contract.
Contract? Okay.
Come
Okay.
come to an agreement, whoever, when you go to them, say, hey, we need your expertise, we need help, and then contract with them accordingly.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is, been made and seconded to approve the request from the county recorder to waive the normal hiring procedures and increase the offer to hire $14,000 above the 95% market value, and to allow for an offer of 40 hours of PT front loading out hiring if needed, on the condition that the recorder also under contract hire a qualified individual, not overlooking the former county recorder, and get help from GIS to complete these segs. Is that the correct motion?
Yep.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
I would just say that, I like most of it, but I'm just not comfortable moving to that piece. But I can put a lot of money toward the contracting and things. So, I won't be able to vote for that,
I feel the same
split
way.
it and do the contract, I'll do that right now.
Which part are you not okay with?
This, I'm not splitting that. I mean, and I'll say why, because we're in a crisis situation, and we'll put a lot of money toward a crisis situation. But the first thing you do when you're digging yourself a hole is stop digging. And by doing this, we open ourselves up to a whole bunch of stuff in the county level. If we weren't in a crisis situation and we were able to hire a chief deputy recorder, we could wait a while. We could wait for Pete candidates to come, we could go out and recruit them, and we can get them within the, within our current system right now without breaking the system. The only reason we need to break the system right now is because we're in a crisis. We break that system, and then we got another crisis on our hands. So why don't we just put a lot of money to the contract and everything else and not put yourself into two different crises? You just take all the contract money and you solve that, and you take this and you maintain the integrity of your system. Because you break this, you got another problem on your hands.
Well, two questions then. Can you find qualified people to contract?
Right up there, right?
Yes.
Well, that's one person. And two, we're overlooking the source of funding for this position, which is different from any other county. The source of funding for this is based on the fees charged, and that's where it comes from.
Yes.
And so that's, to me, that's
Here's how I
a
look at it,
significant
because our
differential.
hands are tied from that funding from the state.
Right.
So I'm gonna use that funding to offset property taxes, because it's all taxes. If this funding was in front of me right now, I would look at reducing the fees that we would charge, because we're obviously overcharging the fees, just like the $40 that we gotta pay for a water heater. You can use these fees to offset the tax increases that you had other places.
Unfortunately, if we don't get this done, we're gonna be in a world of hurt with trying to figure out what our
But
taxes are.
this part is no guarantee. If I could be guaranteed that this part would work, I'd be a lot more. But this, you're betting on the come.
Let's try it. Why don't we try it?
Because you break the system if you bet on the come.
But this
You
is
could
the
crap
system.
out.
It's not breaking it. This is
This is
the
breaking
system.
it.
This is breaking it.
This is breaking it.
This-
How many, Dave, how many people have you managed in your life? Let's talk about it. How many people have you managed in your life that
Paul?
can come and go?
Paul, I believe that comment is out of order because it's personal. So I
Okay,
will
well-
ask the I will ask the
Okay,
council
I'll
member
withdraw
to
the
withdraw the comment.
I'm just saying that this, I don't believe this is breaking the system. This is the system that has been adopted, is that the HR director is authorized up to a certain level. Beyond that, the council's has to give authorization. That's all that's doing. We're going through the system. We're asking, he's asking for the council to authorize something more than what the HR director is able to do.
That's how I understand it as well, is that our policy allows for this to happen.
I would clarify that it's not addressed that I know of in the policy and procedures manual, but because the council adopts the policies and procedures manual, it can also make exceptions to it. So it's not that this process is written into the policies and procedures manual, but just
That's fair.
by the way it all functions. You write the manual, you can make exceptions.
So John, can you address Paul's proposal that we immediately get a contract out and get somebody in there working? And what if we tried that for a month? I mean, we
That's
look.
a policy question that I'm gonna, that's the decision you all make. My opinion is you need, the office needs immediate help.
And to me, the contracting part meets that. If we approve this, we don't have any idea that we've hired anybody yet and how long it's gonna take in the training. But if we immediately do a contract and say, get somebody in here, we're to this point that Paul addressed, we stop digging the hole and we don't exasperate a problem. And I understand the executive does not agree this is a problem, but to me, I'm concerned about it. Is it a problem? I think it's creating the possibilities of a problem.
And just to respond, I agree that there needs to be immediate help and that the most immediate help is the contract and GIS options. Whether the long-term solution ought to be made perhaps more short-term by making an exception, or you hold steady on the current system and see who you can get in while contract people come in and work immediately. I'd prefer not to weigh in on that latter question, as long as the immediate need gets addressed.
Well, I want to reiterate, I don't like this. I don't like this either. I don't want to have to do this. I would rather follow the normal process, but we've tried that, and he hasn't been able to get anybody following the normal process. That's why he's taken this extraordinary step of coming to you and saying, will you please give me an extra $14,000 so we can avoid having people lose $13,000? How many times has that happened? That's one that you've heard about. How many of our citizens have lost thousands of dollars because we are not able to provide the service to them? They rely on us to provide the service. Why aren't we doing it? We should provide this service to them.
Okay.
They're paying us for it.
So we do this, you can guarantee me that the person you have in mind will be here in 2 weeks. You can 100% guarantee we do this, that person is in your office in 2 weeks.
Well, you can't guarantee that, but you can guarantee that he won't be if we don't.
And we can't guarantee anybody would be on contract because Devron's already tried that to some degree. Tried to get some contracts with individuals, correct? Am I remembering correctly?
I haven't tried to get contracts with individuals. I've looked into what it would take to put a contract together, and I do have concerns about that process. Our policy and procedures manual requires that any contracted employee provide their own equipment and their own insurance. So we have an internal system that works on our computers, and contractors are supposed to provide their own equipment to run that program. There's a conflict there that we would have to bridge with an exception if we were to go that route too.
That's a good point, thank you.
Yeah, we looked into that. We had that discussion. They'd have to provide their own liability insurance, their own health insurance,
Workers' comp.
Workers' comp insurance, compensation insurance. All of these things,
Contract people can also be hired as temporaries, right?
That's what I was asking. I believe our code has an emergency provision to hire temporary workers. So that's why I was asking, what do you want me to do?
Or if you will pick whatever you call it.
Hire
you
them
work
or contract?
You work with the professionals, whoever you can, to get them in there right now and say, hey, this is how we can work this. We do have the money to do that.
So there's other issues that may arise with that. If I bring them into my office, where's the space, where's the computers? How do I accommodate more people in our office when we're pretty close to max capacity?
Where were we putting a deputy recorder?
The three positions that you approved for me earlier this year, we did a remodel in our office to get those office spaces available for those positions. Those office spaces are available for the positions you've already provided,
But nobody's in them yet.
but nobody's applying to go in them.
So a contract or a temporary position has a space.
Yeah, they could go there, but then, so are we putting this aside then? I can't fix long-term solutions just doing the short-term in the meantime.
How many workstations do you have, Devron?
Right now, we have seven including my office. We have the 2 vacant positions, so we have 2 that are empty right now. And we've also looked into putting people at our front counter. We have 1 person at our front counter right now, which really isn't a good workspace yet. I would like to get some cubicle space for them to be able to have an actual workspace there at the front counter.
Okay, well, we do have a motion on the floor. So seeing no further discussion, are you ready to vote on the motion?
Who's are we voting on? Carl's or Paul's?
Carl's.
Okay.
Paul didn't really exactly make a
Yeah.
motion. He didn't make a motion to amend or anything. So Carl and Barbara's motion.
I move to amend the main motion.
Okay.
Separate this part out, and let's vote on the remainder portion.
So you are making a motion to remove from the motion this request that's written up here.
This chunk here, and let's vote on the rest of it.
Okay, is there a second on that motion to amend the motion?
Second.
Okay,
What's the rest of it?
That was the other long list that we had.
The contract and the
Contract.
GIS.
so your motion is to remove this part. So all that remains is that the recorder needs to work with GIS and find a trained, competent person, not overlooking the former recorder, to help him in the office. Is that correct, Dave? Or would you like to restate the motion so that I'm saying it correctly?
It's basically everything except for this portion, and then I want to keep debating this portion right
Okay, so what you're asking then actually is a motion to divide the question, to vote on them separately, not
now. No,
leave
I'm
this
asking
part
you right now to
completely out.
remove this, and then it may come up as a separate motion.
That's a motion to, well, then he'd have to remake the motion.
In other words, I move to strike out,
Okay, you want to strike it out.
amend the main motion to strike out this portion of the
Okay.
motion.
Is that what you support, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, so what we first need to vote on is we need to vote on the motion to amend. Yes,
Could I just say on the motion to amend that?
Yes.
It sounds like it's not being specific to contract employees, but that it could be temporary or contract, that can be worked out. As to what would be-
That would be added, yeah.
But the prior motion was specific to contract. Sounds like-
So, okay, I move to amend the main motion that we strike out
restate it.
strike out the words of this portion be taken out,
Okay,
and that we also add the words temporary, give you latitude to do whatever you need to get those people in there now. Okay?
okay. So what we're going to do is first we vote on whether we want to accept this motion. So we're not actually voting on the motion, we're voting on whether or not we want to accept this motion. Does that make sense? We're voting on whether we want to amend the motion. So, all in favor of amending the motion so that the main motion will be then, as Dave stated, please say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I meant nay. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So we have 3 and 3, so the motion fails.
So now we vote.
So now we have the original motion to vote on. Is there any further discussion or amending to this motion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote on the original motion as stated by Carl and backed up by Barbara. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So that motion fails as well. So, not very helpful.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate the discussion, and we'll move forward as best we can.
Okay. Thank you, Devron.
So are we done with that then?
Yeah, we're done with that.
Can we bring it back? Can we bring another motion back up.
You can, we can make a motion to reconsider if you'd like, or we can put it on the next agenda if you'd like.
I still want that one part of the motion approved. To give
Temporary
latitude to go.
contract.
Yeah, the
GIS.
contracts, go after,
Otherwise-
get
that-
people
Okay,
going.
well, go ahead and make
Does that
the,
need a motion? I mean, doesn't he have the wherewithal?
I think he does. I don't think we can tell him what to do there.
I don't know that you can direct who he hires.
Right.
Oh, no, but we can give them the latitude to go out and spend the money to do it.
But he already has that, doesn't he?
He can already hire temporary,
Already.
he can already hire temporary employees. He's not creating a new position.
I think I know what the answer would be, but I'm not the budget guy.
Yeah.
My guess is he's got the money in the budget.
Yeah, he has the money in the budget. Yeah,
Go make things happen. I hope he does.
can do that. Okay. That was complex. Thanks for your patience, you guys. Okay, so we're moving to other business. Okay, so next week, we have a special council meeting to interview the candidates, Cache County Attorney. That will be Tuesday, August 3rd, 5 p.m. Barbara and I talked about, and hopefully you received my email today about the format for that. Let me pull that up just so I don't forget anything since my brain is getting tired. Okay, so, and I know, before I forget, I want to address, Paul, you had a question about discussing the qualifications for these individuals in public meeting. And I know that gives, wanting to do it in an executive session is understandable because you worry about, you don't want to throw anybody under the bus, right?
Yeah, we have 3 eminently qualified candidates, but there's some things that just don't appear like they'd be good to discuss in a public setting, obviously.
I concur with Paul's
And my
concerns.
I
understanding
do
of
too.
executive sessions is to discuss out of public earshot things that are personnel issues and,
The character competence
Character competence
of an
and all,
individual.
yeah.
However, state law is explicit that you may not discuss candidates to fill a vacancy in executive session. So any
Well, it's
discussion.
not vacant right now. But I guess it is.
Wow, okay. I know. So if any discussion needs to take place, it would need to take place on a public
Could we
meeting.
have an executive session to discuss the position and not any of the individuals?
No, you can't discuss a position in a closed session, only the character competence or mental health of an individual.
but isn't that what we're discussing?
It is.
Is character and competence?
It is, and that's what's so strange about it, but the state law is explicit.
Yeah, the state code is
I asked Tony about it.
that for filling, when there's an interim vacancy, that you may not discuss filling that, you cannot discuss the character and qualifications of the applicants, anything related to that in executive session. David, I might have opinions about the value of that.
That's not the first beef I've had with the state code.
That's statutes.
That's nuts.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And it's a new code.
Said it's to be done in open session.
It's a new code. He said subsection 3 specifically prohibits discussing filling midterm vacancy in closed
What is
session.
the code section?
Let's see, 52-4.
Don't let Paul read anything after midnight.
For sure.
He turns into a pumpkin.
S205, I
A
think is what
pumpkin
it
of
is.
bad news.
I did find it. That was,
52-4 S205.
call that live tweeting, is that what it is?
So,
In a closed meeting, a public body may not interview a person applying to fill an elected position, discuss filling a midterm vacancies, discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of the person whose name was submitted for consideration to fill a midterm vacancy.
that covers all of it. That covers all of it. So, I wanted to make sure I answered that question.
Yes. And it's one where I just, like I said, I look at it and we go, yeah, we can all do this. Because we've got 3 fantastic candidates. 3 fantastic candidates.
Yeah, I'm glad we have 3 good candidates, and that,
But that's why we get paid the big bucks.
Boy, howdy.
yeah. Remind me where those big bucks are again, Dave? Okay.
You ever put those quarters in those machines that you hope to, it lands and it hopes to push more quarters? We're not in
Yeah,
that machine.
We're not.
And they're not quarters, they're pennies.
Oh, okay, so, so what we'll do on the 3rd is, we're gonna interview each candidate individually so that they're not playing off each other and we don't have to remember, well, whose turn is it to go first to answer this question? So we'll start with everybody in here and then we'll excuse 2 to go out and keep 1, and interview them. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to give us an opening statement. Following the opening statement, they will field the same questions. And those questions, if you guys would submit your questions, and I've asked our county elected officials as well to submit questions since the county attorney will be working with them. And then Barbara and I will go through to make sure there's no duplicate, similar questions, that they're consolidated, and we'll have those questions to ask.
So you want some specific, the same question for every single person?
Yeah, we want to ask them the same.
questions?
If we have something while we're talking to them, if it brings up something, I don't see that there would be any problem with asking them something, but I just want to ask them the same questions.
What breed of dog do you have or something like that?
Yeah, you can ask that. That's important to you, you can ask that as a council, but overall, for the discussion, we're gonna ask them the same question. But if in asking those questions, if there's a follow-up or something, I don't have any heartburn with
I'm
that.
just happy with us open up the questions. Just, I don't even have a set of questions.
And if,
Sit down candidate and let's just ask them questions.
Yeah, I like the fact that, as he answers a question, brings a question to my mind or something.
yeah, then go ahead and ask that question. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. It'll bring things up. So, let's see, so that's the plan, and then after answering the questions, they can have 2 minutes if they prefer, or if they want to give a closing statement. And then, the next person, they'll be invited to go get the next person to come in and we'll talk to them. So, that's the process that Barbara and I work together to figure out, and, I think that'll be a good process. So,
So in that open meeting, is it recorded and then available for viewing afterwards?
it is, and it will actually be streaming it on our YouTube channel as well. There
Isn't that shouldn't that be delayed?
I'm in Alaska that week, I believe.
I'm going with you.
Or somewhere.
Well, there hasn't really been a vetting process because the county party just sent us the names because they only had 3 names and they were required to give us 3 names, so they didn't do any sort of an election, which is understandable.
I mean,
And so there hasn't been any vetting or
good
asking.
people, but I just think that should be delayed in this situation if we're asking questions and something. That's just my own thought.
Can you just forego the broadcast for that?
The press has specifically asked because they will be out of town and want to be able to report on what's happening.
What a coincidence. We'll all be out of town too.
That's okay, we can have an electronic meeting, we know how to do those and they're allowed by
I'm
law.
just thinking delaying it.
Delay, what do you mean
Who
delay?
else could be out of town?
We'll post it later.
Yeah.
Why, I'm not understanding.
Why can't somebody view that while they're sitting waiting for the interview or whatever else?
Or a friend or family member view it.
Oh, and call them in, oh, that's a good point, I hadn't thought about
Yeah.
that. That makes sense.
That's what I mean, not that they do it, but we
Just
have
to
to think
make
about
sh-
that in every
right.
situation.
What do we do, sequester them? Do we have a booth?
I was gonna get a sound
Earphones?
booth with noise canceling headphones.
Oh, I've heard that in school before.
So, yeah, we can delay it.
Hey, I
That's a
think,
good point. Thank you,
should be delayed.
Nolan. So we can do that, just to make sure that everyone is confident that there's no somebody, family member watching, texting a
that way if
candidate.
I say something stupid, we can go back and erase it. Well, that would happen to every one of them then,
Well,
right?
you could just wear a bag over your head that night if you want. No one will know who you are.
I'll sit in Gordon's seat then.
Good plan. Okay. The item B, Cache County Fair and Rodeo is coming up Wednesday through Saturday, August 11th to the 14th. And by the way, I want you to know, when we had Lamont Polson come last time and he gave us that medal for being, I forgot what it was, let me look, the Best of Northern Utah medal. I went and took that down and gave it to Ron at the fairgrounds and asked him to put it in a nice frame and put the names of everyone involved in the fair so we can have that in that building and everyone can see the award that we won. So I didn't take it home. I didn't use it for, a coaster or something.
Melt down the gold.
I didn't melt it down. I don't think there was any gold in it, but I didn't try to melt it down. Okay, the CVTD bus rodeo is Wednesday, August 18th, from 10:30 to 1:30 p.m. It's at the airport. I believe each of you got a personal invite from our representative to attend that. I think we need to RSVP, so I'll find out that information and let you know in case you want to attend. Wellsville's Founders Day Parade, that's September 6th. Okay.
I'll make a comment about parades. Gina and I have kind of been the lone rangers in these last parades, and, I kind of miss the times when we'd all be there.
Together.
We'd be in the county executive's truck, and everybody's name was on there. The county executive was there, and the council members were there, and it really displayed, I think, a nice show of.
How'd we miss Menden Parade? Because I went to that for the
Unity and
party and walked frickin' 10 miles, so.
Yeah, I didn't even see it on our.
Yeah, it wasn't on our agenda.
There was a Menden Parade.
I'll be back. I missed the last two because I was on vacation, but I'll be back at the future ones.
That'd be good. Yep.
Me too. I've been out of town most of this summer, so.
And by the way, Carl and we won an award from the mayor of Logan for our entry.
Yep, we
Yeah.
were.
What were we, the best float or something?
Yep, best entry of the parade.
Yeah. But thank you.
Boy, I hate to see the others.
No comment there, but,
No, I can give all the credit to Gina and my grandkids.
aw,
There you go.
I don't know about that. I give all the credit to the American West Heritage Center. They provided us a wagon with some beautiful horses.
See, I've been saying we should have a wagon and
Carl's
cowboy
grandkids,
boots
'cause
for
they
the
were so
Wellsville
cute.
parade.
Yep.
Yeah, it
Well,
was,
I think so too. My wife pushed for that. She was helped with the parade for years and couldn't get permission to allow horses in the parade, but now finally.
well, they finally have it.
It was nice.
It was nice. It was really fun.
The fire department even followed behind
With the
to
poopers.
take care of the waste.
People like them more than us. I don't know why. The council summer social is going to be Saturday, September 11th at 5 p.m. Barbara, do you have any more info on
Yeah,
that?
I talked to John White, and he's more than willing to have that at his house.
Oh, how fun.
So we will be at his home, and I told him we wanted prime rib.
Oh, awesome. That will be fun. Thank you, Barbara. Okay, the USAC Fall Conference is coming up September 14th through the 16th in Midway. On a USAC call this morning, we were talking about possible topics, and everyone wanted to make sure we had a round table where we had less presentations and more time just sitting and being able to talk with each other about how we solve issues in our county, which I look forward to that. I think that's a good idea, but we'll find out more on that.
Well, put me down on that. I'm going to see if I can get a substitute.
I will be on vacation.
I am in Alaska,
Really?
actually,
You
yes.
better phone in.
That's the truth this time.
Is that the truth this time? Okay, Dave.
Yeah, that week, the whole week.
I'll be in South Dakota.
All of a sudden, I had a thing pop up on my text saying that I had plane reservations. Surprised me, and my wife had sent them in.
Oh, that's fun.
So I'm going fishing
You
with.
better
my
check
friends.
that. She may just put them for you in one
She
way.
might be sending you away.
One way.
Without David Erickson.
I should be that, Gina. I should
Will you be there? Okay, awesome. For USAC, yeah. Okay, the USU Homecoming Parade, Saturday, October 23rd, 10 a.m. Anyone else want to be a part of that?
As long as it rains.
Yeah.
That's the funnest, yeah, right, remember that. Okay, and then UAC, our annual convention is set for November 9th through the 12th in St. George.
Do you need names on that? I'll be to that.
Do you want names on that? Okay, I'll be there.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
I
Unless I'm
Probably
in
won't be
South
there.
Dakota that week.
I've already been to South Dakota this
Yet to be
year.
determined.
I'm going to Mount Rushmore.
That's where I went. We'll have to talk.
Yeah.
David, will you be there at UAC?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have council member reports, and then don't forget, we have a quick executive session for an update on something. Nolan, do you want to start?
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
The only thing in my report is I'll publicly apologize to Mr. Zook. I apologize, Dave. I was out of line. I got mad over a pretty intractable situation we were having, and I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, Barbara?
No, nothing else.
Carl?
Nope.
Dave?
I want to bring up the resolution.
Yes, I was going to bring that up, but you go for it.
Okay, it was the resolution that is actually proposed that USAC approved.
We approved today
100%
unanimously.
Unanimously today,
Yep.
that we also, on a county level, they encourage us to really look at, and it's the one that the new director for the Bureau of Land Management, Stone Manning, whom has got ties to Earth First and Radical Spiking Trees, and they have, oh my gosh, they have all these things that literally that have been, well, she has an arrest record. I mean, it's all there, and Biden, President Biden is actually wanting to put her as the BLM director over those areas, which, and I know we don't have very many, well, we don't have little to no BLM. I think we sold our last little BLM land. Didn't they get traded to Hyde Park, I believe, just a little bit ago? But we still have federal lands that is definitely going to be in our backyard. It's going to affect, and we also need to show support also to the rest of the state that has a lot of BLM lands.
Did all of the waterways that were BLM get changed out to the private water users and that?
I don't know.
Because like Wellsville, Mendon Canal was under
That's,
BLM?
that was actually not BLM. That was
Was that
Bureau of Reclamation.
Okay.
That was a different organization
My mistake then.
that does the water rights
Okay.
section of it. So, but Bureau of Land Management, so there is and it was sent to us. I don't know if everybody got that, and we can get that and
We can
forward that,
forward-
but we need to,
We need it made for our county.
yeah, we need it made for our county, and if we can turn that over, then let's look at it. That may even happen this week, but we still need to get this looked at, and if we can pass it, I would urge you that we pass this and that we then send that resolution on to all of our elected officials back in Washington, collectively pulled together, that we are disheartened by such craziness, to be honest with you, at a national level. It's just doesn't need to be happening in huge policy making. Well, we already got it, this president. Anyway, okay. But anyway, we need to look at that.
One of you will send it to me, we'll get it formatted for.
I've got it right, I've got it right here, and would next week be?
I plan to put it on the agenda for next week. We'll just put on the quick, right at the first thing, so that we don't forget and just get it done.
Before you take our phones?
Before we interview you guys.
I appreciate
We'll
it.
already be riled up about something, that'll go over well.
I'll email it to you right now.
Yeah,
Unless,
if I need it too, please.
the only other thing I thought of, I heard a couple county, they were commissioners say they were gonna just send it and then they were gonna, ratify it, but I don't know that we can do that. Do you have any thoughts on that, John? Signing on a resolution and then ratifying it at the next meeting?
I'm not sure I followed you on that.
Instead of passing
county.
as a council,
Well, we're just meeting in a week, so why does it matter?
because the vote could happen this week, that's why.
Oh, are you
The
asking
vote.
about
I-
voting tonight?
No, what she's saying is
I'll come in and sign it
sign it and then ratify it.
and then ratify it at the next meeting.
I think you can personally, in your personal capacity, sign it and do your own resolution next week.
I say we just do it next.
Let's
Tuesday.
just do it next week and not
Tuesday,
worry.
Send it on.
Yeah, okay,
It'll-
okay. Anything else, Dave?
No, and I appreciate that.
Thanks. Okay, let's see. I think we talked about everything I had on my list. The only other thing was, I talked to Cameron, and we expect to have the budget prepared for next meeting. He said he got a little bit behind because they had to get a new hire in their office, so I was expecting it already, but should have it for our next meeting and have him explain and talk about what's in there, so.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
just add one more thing?
You bet.
Our sheriff told me yesterday that there were a handful of positive COVID tests in the jail. I was notified today that there are potentially more than 50 people who've been exposed. We don't necessarily have positive tests from that many people, but there's concern that there could be a larger outbreak than what we've heard about so far.
Okay. Thank you. Janine?
I just wanted to draw your attention to the coupons that you've received.
Oh, thank
for
you.
rodeo tickets. If you wanted to buy additional tickets, you need to do it by this Friday at 5.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Janine. Okay, we do have an executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for the reason listed, and if you would please explicitly say it's in the council meeting room behind us.
So moved. With what you just said out
Okay.
loud.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, and we're meeting in this room behind us. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.